European edition back in your ears, folks. Thank you very much for joining us. It's me, Matt Davis-Adams, joined in the studio by Alvaro Romeo.
Hello.
Hola.
Hola, Matt.
Seb Staff applause with us too. How you doing, Seb?
Doing good, Matt Davis-Adams.
Excellent. And on the big screen, the incomparable Julien Laurent. Jules, you okay?
Bonjour, very good, thank you. And you?
Oui, très bien, très bien. Later we shall hear from James Horncastle on all things Italian, but let's get some moments of the weekend first of all. Sebs, you kick us off?
Marco Reus. So obviously just before the weekend, Reus announced he's going to be leaving the club. And big 5-1 victory of Augsburg. Very nice way to warm up for the second leg of that Champions League game. But there's a lovely shot of Reus with the yellow wall before the game. But also he scored in the second half, and he kind of, after he'd raced away to score really elegantly, the camera caught all sorts of Dortmund dignitaries in the crowd. So Carsten Kramer was there, Aki Watzke, Lars Ricken, who's taking over as the kind of sports CEO. Matthias Sammer wearing a lumberjack shirt. I feel like that needs a little bit more context. But you could see how much the moment meant to all of them and how much they enjoyed watching someone who's done so much for Dortmund and been so unlucky, but have a really, really lovely swan song. Moment of the week.
Mean to call him a nearly man? I guess he might not be if he wins the Champions League this season.
I suppose so, but I think it misses a sort of a broader point, Matt, about how many bad injuries he's had at terrible moments and how good a player he really has been for a very, very long time. And that kind of transcends players who've left the club, difficult circumstances, managerial change in eras. And I suppose one of the constants has been Reus, and he's been a wonderful servant.
Jules, I'm guessing your moment of this week, you're hoping is going to come on Tuesday. What about from the weekend?
Very much so for Tuesday. This Friday night in Troyes, where in the second division in Ligue 2, the game between Troyes and Valenciennes was abandoned just before the end, only with a few minutes to play. When the score was 1-1, Valenciennes are already relegated. Troyes fighting against another relegation, which would be the second in a row after they went down from Ligue 1 to the second division last summer. And the ultras threw flares on the pitch and staged a big protest. Some of the players threw the flares back, which is obviously not the right thing to do either. And overall, just the situation and the crisis at Troyes, which is a club owned obviously by the City Football Group and Manchester City. And when it works well for Girona, it's a disaster for Troyes when they made wrong decisions time and time again. And really, overall, it's a sad state of affairs for Troyes and a really difficult situation. They can still stay up, but they will need a miracle. And also, we don't know what's going to happen with this game now and what the discipline committee of the French Federation would decide. So, not good at all in Troyes on Friday night.
Girona very much the outlier in terms of multi-club ownership model. Alvaro, what's yours, please?
Well, it could have been Girona because they qualified for the Champions League for the first time in their history this weekend. But I'm going to stay with Celta. We haven't spoken about them a lot this season because they've been pretty bad. But at the same time, there was a real danger of them going to the second division. And I don't think that's going to happen because they beat Villarreal this weekend 3-2. And it was a very relieving victory for them. They got the points they needed, with the manager Giraldez, who was the one who succeeded Rafa Benitez, and being 8 points away from relegation with 12 points remaining tells me that Celta are going to stay in La Liga for one more season. It was difficult for them. It was kind of epic because Anastasios Douvikas scored the goal on the 82nd minute of the game, and they did it. And I think that after enduring a very difficult season, Celta knows that they will most probably stay in La Liga for one more year.
All right, more La Liga to come later. Next today, we're going to get to those Champions League semi-finals, second legs. Bayern in the Bernabeu rolls beautifully off the tongue. This tie perfectly poised after last week's first leg in Munich, where it finished 2-2. Alvaro, Real Madrid wrapped up the league at the weekend, so the celebrations, I guess, somewhat muted here. They've done it so easily, though. They've still got plenty in the tank for the Champions League this season.
I think that they've got a lot. I mean, La Liga for them has been a little bit of a stroll in the park, and really, they've been better than Girona, have beaten them twice comfortably, and Girona is the second of La Liga right now. They also beat Barcelona twice, and they have been imposing their game every time. I think that the fact that they have only suffered one defeat tells the story, really. Real Madrid has been really good defensively as well when it mattered, especially in the domestic competition, not so much in the Champions League, but they are reaching this game in the perfect moment for them. I mean, they haven't celebrated La Liga. They will do it next Saturday, going to Cibeles most likely, which is the place where they go to celebrate the titles. But this is the most important game they've got left until the beginning of June, and they are in a very, let's put it this way, favorable position right now. Bayern is going to be difficult, a tough opponent, but Real Madrid are where they want to be, and probably Bayern right now too in the Champions League. The difference is that Real Madrid has won already 2 trophies, the Super Cup and La Liga. Bayern is still empty-handed.
And given Thibaut Courtois came back in that weekend win over Cadiz, is it likely that he starts this game, or are they going to stick with Lunin?
I really don't think so. I think that Ancelotti is going to stick to Lunin because Lunin has been having a decent season. Thibaut Courtois did a couple of really good saves in the game, by the way. So that maybe give us a hint that he may be a contender to be in a hypothetical Champions League final in June, starting in that game. But not this time. I am a little bit more curious about who is going to pair up with Rudiger as centre back, because there are many options. Militao is back. He played 90 minutes the other day against Cadiz. I don't think that the Brazilian is going to be the first choice option for Ancelotti. And then you can use either Nacho, who is leaving to the MLS at the end of the season, a great servant of the club, or Tchouaméni, who is so flexible in a way that he can play as a holding midfielder or as a centre back, as he did against Bayern in the same game. So for me, this is the biggest doubt. And also, if Bayern or Real Madrid who will dominate here? Because we have seen it lately in the Champions League that Real Madrid is more than happy to be slightly dominated and then kill you on the break.
What do you think, Jules? Real Madrid at home this season, yet to be beaten. They're heavy favourites here. It's heavy, maybe a little too strong.
Yeah, maybe a little bit too strong. They have to be favourite because it's 0-0 now. There's no away goals anyway. But at the Bernabeu with the fans, the sort of mystic side of their Champions League every season as well, and that aura that they have, I think it'd be very hard. I think Bayern can do it, but we saw again Tuchel not rotating maybe as much that Carlo did, or that Terzic did, and PSG didn't even play. And then in result of that, lost Guerrero. I mean, Dyer was not fit before the game, but he played. So there was a lot of things I didn't really get from the Tuchel's starting 11 against Stuttgart at the weekend in a game that meant nothing to them at all. So we will have to see. I just think that it's hard to see Bayern really going there and beating this incredible Real Madrid side this season.
Seb, it feels like we've got Thomas Tuchel in the Bundesliga and Thomas Tuchel in the Champions League, and they're quite separate.
I would actually extend it out, Matt. Like I think there are so many different players at Bayern who have alter egos between domestic and continental football, and it's as if in Europe everybody expects them to get beaten. Everybody expected Arsenal to go to eliminate them in the last round. We're talking quite rightly about Real Madrid's strengths and how they're a prohibitive favourite in this game. And there's something, you see a very uninhibited Bayern, I think, in the Champions League. And yeah, I don't think it is so much about Thomas Tuchel, because I would actually probably compare it to, not a straight parallel, but perhaps Di Matteo's Chelsea, where you have this core of really influential, really talented players who are playing amidst a whole nest of flaws and issues, and yet are overcoming them in one-off games, which, as we know, can always happen and don't probably examine you in the same way that a 38-game season does back in Germany. One thing, poor Eric Dyer against Stuttgart, because in the first half, goes up for a header at corner, gets a pretty nasty head injury, starts bleeding, then makes an absolutely brilliant goal line clearance, but with the part of his head that's been injured at the set piece, bleeds profusely, has to be substituted off. And I know people love this, but without Dyer, there are huge problems in that defence. He was brought to Bayern not necessarily because of his technical abilities, but because, yes, he can pass, but he's a great communicator, great professional. And so he's the stable point amongst a group of defenders who actually are very proactive, very frenetic is probably the right word, very very talented, but probably not quite right as a sort of as a group. Without him, I would really fear for them in the Bernabeu. But yeah, we'll see. I think Tuchel did a pretty good job of shutting around some of the minutes. Sané only played a part of the game. We talked about Guerrero having to come off, which was unfortunate. Goretzka having to play more than he might do. Musiala was rested, which is super important. Connie Lima was arrested, and Lima's probably been the, not discovery because he was hardly unknown, but certainly the man of the last probably 3 Champions League games. He's been absolutely brilliant in central midfield. So interesting.
One thing I like about Tuchel the other day against Real Madrid is the fact that maybe he's on his way out, but he doesn't mind making key decisions during the game. He dropped Goretzka for the second half, brought in Guerreiro, swapped Sané and Musiala, and Sané ended up scoring on the left, just dribbling past Ferland Mendy. Beautiful goal. He has made some key decisions in this tie already. I think that he's not the kind of manager who, since he knows that he's leaving, he says, you know what, I don't care. He's still trying to have an influence on the games.
Alvaro, I think that's a really good point, because also it feels like he's been freed from the commentary of the German media. So previously, every little micro decision relating to the team, every substitution, team selection, where's Kimmich playing, why isn't Goretzka starting, it comes with an op-ed piece somewhere from someone who has loyalties to someone else in the club. Now it's like, I'm leaving. Say what you want, doesn't matter. You know, we're doing very well. The performances in Europe are speaking for themselves. Kimmich will play what I want him to play. Goretzka will sit on the bench if I want him to. Lima's going to start because he's important. He feels like he's got a little bit more agency than he might have done previously.
He's dropping a torch behind him and leaving like the Joker, something like that. Yeah. He doesn't care.
Obligatory Harry Kane reference, his last chance of silverware this season. I think I'm more concerned than anybody else about him ending his career without a trophy. I wonder though, if actually Bayern win the Bundesliga next season, which is clearly not a given, that's a bit more credible than just moving to Germany to go to Bayern because they always win the Bundesliga. If you do it after you've not won it for a year, maybe it looks a bit better in retrospect. Yeah,
and I think if you look at Kane's season objectively and fairly, he's actually played extremely well, even against Stuttgart, where Jules talked about how rotten they were in Stuttgart, and he's absolutely right. Kane played really well at different points, played a lovely through ball with Eric Choupo-Moting in the first half, which Choupo-Moting didn't take advantage of. But I think when you look at Kane's contribution to a team that isn't very joined up, doesn't make a lot of sense, isn't particularly cohesive, and it's been chopped and changed, and you see the steady beat of his influence, that's an amazingly impressive accomplishment when you marry it with new culture, new country, new language, new teammates, new coach. All of these things he's just dropped in and produced a world-class performance across the season, which is an amazing thing. And I don't know, the trophy thing is tricky, because even next season, Matt, if he wins the Bundesliga, the assessment will just be, wow, it's Bayern, isn't it? It's easy. Even though Leverkusen have proven that that's not always the case.
Finally on Bayern, what if he wins it as player-manager? Because they're running out of other options, right? You've written about this.
A real throwback, yeah, for player manager. The options are pretty varied. So we obviously did a report in The Athletic about this over the weekend, and they're still at shortlist stage. I don't think there's anything particularly close at the moment, but they've had that succession of issues, which I have a little bit of sympathy for, because I know it's easy to mock them and say, well, Bayern can't attract anybody, but so much has changed. If you look at the technical department and the new dimensions that Ebel and Christoph Freund have brought in, it's not yet clear where, firstly, their authority ends and goes up to, and what the role is of, for instance, Uli Hoeneß and Karl-Heinz Rummenigge. Well, what role are they playing? And so if you're a coach coming in there, you have to contend with Bayern, who are in need of a rebuild, so you're not operating from a position of strength. Bavarian media, not very forgiving of lack of success. But also this very nebulous structure, which is still to show itself. And that's quite difficult. I mean, Bayern Munich are a very big club, but it's also quite difficult to attract a truly elite coach under those circumstances where you're not guaranteed to succeed, because, damages your reputation. So we'll see, but pending. Let's see where we are in a week, I guess, after the Champions League semi-final.
So all those reasons then, Jules, that Seb's just given, is that why Zinedine Zidane has decided that Bayern is not the next job for him?
Yeah, and I'm not really sure. I think he was at some point on their list, but never really in that concrete way. I think the language is a big thing, really, and you have to be honest. For him especially, and the way he connects with his players is key, and he was never going to learn German. He doesn't speak another language than Spanish and French anyway. So, and Italian, a little bit of Italian. So it reduces the way he can go, really. But I think he liked the idea of Bayern, the Adidas were the ones who loved this idea more than anybody else, more than Zidane himself and more than Bayern themselves. So it was never really, I think, that discussion.
All right, well, that seems to sum up modern football quite nicely. So that is on Wednesday, 24 hours prior to Real Madrid versus Bayern Munich. Jules will have bitten his fingernails down to the bone as his beloved
I've already started.
PSG welcome Borussia Dortmund. They're looking to defend or maybe even improve on their 1-0 first leg advantage. They're still very much in it, obviously, Jules, but are they still lamenting their failure to score last week? Because that was pretty incredible that they didn't manage to.
Yeah, you're right. I felt being there, especially with that incredible atmosphere. It was my first time, Seb, by the way, and I just loved every second of it, even if they beat my team. That it could have finished easily a 2-2 draw, for example. Dortmund probably deserved another one, to be fair, because they played well when they had the chances. And PSG somehow in that second half, I just don't understand how at least one didn't go in. So they seem to move on quite quickly from that game. The players, Luis Enrique, the people at the club, certainly the people that I know well. Which is maybe not a bad thing because they seem really up for it and confident. Let's not hope too confident, but a bit like after the Barcelona first leg, for example, going into Spain, and this time it's at home. I think the atmosphere is going to be incredible. I like this Dortmund team. I like them in the Champions League more than in the Bundesliga, but I like it in Terzic. I think there's a really good manager in there, even if in the league between this season and last season, it's been a bit of a nightmare for him. But overall, I like what he does. I like some of the decisions. I like some of the calls that he makes. I don't know if we will see a back three again on Tuesday night like we saw in the first game in Paris when they faced each other in the group stage. That's the only time he played the back three, and at the time it didn't really work out. But I would not rule out Terzic coming up with an idea to be able to make this team as I was going to say comfortable, but that's the wrong word, as kind of bearable for his team, because it's going to be hell. I think the atmosphere is going to be amazing. This PSG team is going to go at them again and again and again, and you will need a very strong Dortmund team to come out of that and be able to qualify. So I think they can do it, of course, and PSG can easily win 2-0, 3-1 and qualify too. That's why I think this game is also fascinating, like Wednesday night. But I'm really curious to see what Dortmund do to try to not invite too much pressure on themselves.
I really like Paris this season in general. Only thing is that sometimes during games they get broken into pieces. It happened last season a lot with Neymar, Messi and Kylian playing up front, but this season the fact that Ugarte is not playing as a holding midfielder means that they control the game many times, but the opponent has every now and then 3 or 4 really dangerous counterattacks with Vitinha, Emery and Fabian, who are dynamic, but none of them are particularly defensive minded. I think that is one of the chances of Dortmund, in my opinion. And the other one, and I want to ask Jules, if Mbappe plays as a number 9, he's a totally different player. He's hidden between the centre backs and he cannot do much. I don't understand why the other day against Dortmund, Kylian played as a number 9 for a good period of time instead of Kolo Muani. That was a decision that I never understood very well.
Yeah, I mean, they wanted to put they didn't want Kylian on the left-hand side because of Ryerson and Sancho, and they wanted someone who would run a bit more defensively and defend a bit more, which Mbappe doesn't do. So I think that's why Kolo Muani came on and played on the left. That's why Gonzalo Ramos didn't come on at all, which was a bit surprising, really, because Ramos was in much better form than Kolo Muani. But you can't put Ramos on that left-hand side, whereas I guess you can with Kolo Muani. I don't know. I don't know if you move to a 4-2-4 from a PSG point of view and Luis Enrique straight away. So like at the start of the game on Tuesday night to really go for it. So you take out Ruiz or Zaire Emery and you leave with Vitinha and you go really, really like full attack. But then you expose yourself to a Sancho counter-attack and a Adeyemi counter-attack, or Daniel Malen is back now as well, and those kind of moves. Or if you keep the 4-3-3 and you wait maybe a little bit more in the game to see what happens, to move to a 4-2-4 if really you need to. I don't know. I think we will have the same team apart from Lucas Hernandez, who's obviously did his ACL in the first leg and will be replaced by Danilo surely.
Well, it'll be the first Champions League semi-final at the Parc des Princes with fans in attendance since 1995. Seb, Dortmund warmed up for it nicely with a 5-1 thrashing of Augsburg on Saturday. They coming into this game thinking that they're going to have to score again if they're to get through to the final, and kind of lamenting the fact that they didn't do that last week, I guess.
Yeah, there's definitely a sense of that. I mean, I think what came out of the first leg was great performance, a real throwback effort, but needed that second goal. I think also I worry about Dortmund because so much of their performance in the first leg depended on really, really exceptional individual performances. So I'm looking at the team from that game now, and I would say Ian Maatsen and Julian Ralston on the outside fullback positions were brilliant. Jadon Sancho we've talked about. Karim Adeyemi gave probably, I would say, certainly his best defensive performance I think I've seen from him at Dortmund. His ability to kind of nullify the Hakimi threat was a huge part of what Dortmund did well, and also protecting Maatsen, enabling him to kind of make a little bit of hay in the inverted fullback role. Can they do that again? Emre Can was excellent. Niklas Füllkrug scored probably the goal of his career, I would say, certainly in terms of importance. And you're also depending on Hummels and Schlotterbeck in the two centre-back positions, who have had really exceptional games, but tend to be spread apart a little bit. And so to ask them to go and reproduce the same calibre of performance 8 days later, it seems an awful stretch, and yet that seems like what it will take, just because we talked about how many chances PSG were able to create, even against a really good PSG Dortmund performance, and it felt like, yeah, on a different night might not go so well. So we'll see. And I also, one of the great intangibles, when you take the Westfalenstadion away from Dortmund, what happens next? And also in that atmosphere in Paris as well, it's a little bit of a blowtorch effect on what is quite a weak side generally.
All right, I think we're going to get the same answer from all three, but starting with you, Seb, who's the Champions League final at Wembley going to be contested between?
I would say, against my heart, I would say PSG Madrid.
Same for you, Alvaro?
So boring. PSG Madrid, yes. Yeah. I say the same thing, yeah.
Jules, you'll be going Dortmund versus somebody.
Yeah, of course, Dortmund Bayern Munich. Here we go. Yes.
But yeah, 3 from 3, right, Jules? PSG, Real Madrid.
I have to say PSG, and I think Real Madrid will be too strong.
All right, we'll find out. Okay, let's take a little break, and then we'll sound the Horncastle. James Horncastle joins us now from his sun-drenched holiday. James, title race over in Italy, as it is almost everywhere else. But what did the weekend have to offer in Serie A?
I'd say that the most significant result of the weekend was in Reggio Emilia, where Sassuolo beat the champions, Inter. It was only Inter's second defeat in the league all season. The other one was also against Sassuolo, which was, this is quite a head-scratcher, really, because Sassuolo have been a bogey team for the top sides. Last year they beat all of them, but this year, for the first time in 11 years, it looks like their time in Serie A is up. They hired one of the great escape artists, Davide Ballardini, to come in and pull them out of the relegation mire. But last week they lost 5-1 to Fiorentina, and they just looked dead and buried. So they got this win against an Inter side that has essentially had 2 title celebrations, because the first one came in the Derby della Madonnina, which they won. They beat AC Milan and they became champions in that fixture. And then last weekend, they also had a formal bus parade through the city of Milan into Piazza del Duomo. Some incredible celebrations there. So Inter a little bit hungover, to say the least. And I think that's what people should focus on, rather than these deep state conspiracy theorizing that's been going on Serie A Twitter about Inter's chief executive and Sassuolo's chief executive, being best men at each other's weddings, going into business together in the past and all this sort of thing. Sassuolo need a win and all that. I think this was just a case of one team having nothing to play for and the other team having everything to play for, and getting a win that keeps their survival hopes narrowly alive.
In terms of Inter's neighbours, Milan, we were hearing last week about how the fans had effectively put the kibosh on the club's move to make Julen Lopetegui their new manager. What's the latest on the Rossoneri?
They've once again been the focus of a lot of attention in Italy this weekend. First and foremost because the Curva, where the ultras stand, they've gone on strike. They basically withdrew all of their flags and banners in protest at the management of the club. They announced that they were going to do this earlier in the week. They basically have said that they're not convinced by the project that the club has. They think it's not been explained well enough. It's ambiguous. A lot of this comes out of what they believe to have been a mediocre season, because even though Milan are second, they've never been in the title race. Inter have beaten them 6 consecutive times. The most recent one being in a derby which allowed Inter to win the league. That was a real slap in the face for the fan base. Milan also obviously went out in the quarterfinals of the Europa League at the hands of another domestic opponent. So last year, Inter knocked them out of the Champions League in the semi-finals. This year, Roma knocked them out in the quarterfinals. So that was disappointing too. And they haven't been impressed by the names of some of the candidates to replace Stefano Pioli in the summer. We wrote about this last week with Lopetegui. Lopetegui has essentially got no chance of getting the Milan job now on the back of that backlash. We've moved on to Sergio Conceição as being the hot name on Gazzetta dello Sport's front pages this week. At the moment, I wouldn't read too much into this. I think the competitive landscape in the executive search for a coach has changed quite significantly in the last 10 days, because Milan were competing, for example, in theory against Liverpool, against Barcelona, against Bayern Munich, and others for coaches. Now, Liverpool have got this process underway to appoint Arne Slot. Barca have announced that Xavi is staying. Bayern were in talks with Ralf Rangnick. That's obviously fallen through, but it means that Milan no longer have to rush to get a coach. They can take their time. They can do more due diligence. So I'm not expecting a quick announcement on that, but it's going to be an announcement that has to set the tone and bring the fans back on side. Now, in terms of their current manager, Stefano Pioli, he was asked in his pre-match press conference a cryptic question, which was, Stefano, do you like pizza? Which in abstract, without context, people are like, what the hell is going on here? But of course, Naples is where people really like pizza. It's where pizza essentially comes from, the best pizza in the world. And there's been a lot of talk about Stefano Pioli becoming the next Napoli manager. He handled that question quite well. He said he prefers capelletti in brodo, which is the local dish from his hometown in Parma. Parma, who've been promoted in the last week back to Serie A. So Pioli, one of the names in the hat for the Napoli job, along with Gasperini and Vincenzo Italiano.
And that brings us very nicely to the Italian sides in European action this week, with Italiano's Fiorentina defending a 3-2 lead in the Conference League on Thursday as they travel to Belgium to face Club Bruges.
Quite an epic and dramatic game at the Artemio Franchi, as Bruges were down to 10 men and yet got the game back to 2-2, and Fiorentina only clinched the win in stoppage time. Fiorentina, even though they scored 3 goals in that game, the story of their season has been they are a team that creates an awful lot, but they are also a team that doesn't convert, and they lost against Hellas Verona this weekend. Verona doing one of the most underrated seasons, I think, at least their manager Baroni, because this is a club that has had to sell off the family silver over this season. Did so in January, completely overhauled the team. You had the Guardia di Finanza, Italy's financial police, basically seizing the company that owns the majority of shares in Hellas Verona as well. And ordinarily, a club would spiral in those circumstances, and instead, they've had a very good second half of the season. But I digress. So back to the European semi-finals. Roma go to Leverkusen looking for a remontada of the sort that we saw in 2018 when they overcame Barcelona after losing 2-0 at the Camp Nou. They won 3-0 at the Stadio Olimpico, Manolas, Peter Drury, and all that, the Greek god in Rome. This is different, obviously, because they're not playing at home the second leg, they're playing away. And they are going away to a team that is still undefeated in 48 games in Bayer Leverkusen. So to score 2 or 3 goals on them without reply would be a quite incredible achievement. De Rossi saying that he believes, even though Paulo Dybala went off injured in the 1-1 draw with Juventus on Sunday night. Roma have only won one of their last 5 games, which was that short 20-minute game against Udinese, which Brian Cristante won at the death. Roma certainly were outplayed in parts against Leverkusen on last Thursday, particularly shortly after conceding the goal, which Rick Karsdorp gifted to them. But they did have chances themselves. You know, Brian Cristante glancing header from a corner kick, the sort that he scored to win the game against Udinese. You had Asmoon 1v1 as well. You had Tammy Abraham right at the death, missing a sitter, as he did against Juventus in stoppage time on Sunday. And then you've got Atalanta, who are in a better position after their 1-1 draw in Marseille. Marseille had beaten the likes of Ajax, Benfica on penalties, Villarreal at the Velodrome. So to come away with a point from that game gave Gasperini huge satisfaction, particularly after they lost Kolasinac early in that game. They didn't have Hien, another centre-back to bring on, so Darun had to play centre-back, which when they were adjusting their defence and their midfield, it meant that they lost a little bit of balance, which could have led the game to get away from them. But Scamacca continues to be in fine form. He's been the real difference making in knockout games. I think he's scored in his last 5 or 6 knockout games. So they'll be looking to him. Obviously, they lost their last European game in Bergamo against Liverpool, but they won that game they won that tie 3-1 on aggregate. So Atalanta looking to reach another final. They feel that they're in pole position. So let's see if they can reach the Europa League final in Dublin.
Europa League semi-finals also this week. Atalanta on the verge of their first ever European final. They could get into the Champions League if they win that. First, they've got to overcome Marseille. It's 1-1 after the first leg in France. Jules, what sort of form do we find Marseille in ahead of this one? Not very good form, I would suggest, after a cursory look at their recent results.
Yeah, but I guess the only thing that matters is that first leg, because they didn't play this weekend. They were given the weekend off by the league, like PSG, like we saw before the quarterfinals, second leg as well. And I thought they did really well in that first leg, considering the form that Atalanta are in right now. For Marseille to almost match their intensity, to actually, I think, be the better side. Okay, it was at the Velodrome, so all the fans were there, the 60,000 fans gave an amazing support. But Marseille really were unlucky not to score another goal and not to win that game. So if they can go and reproduce that kind of intensity, certainly in a different atmosphere, of course, away from home, but they can reproduce at least that intensity, I think they'll have a chance. And they really believe in it. They've been better in Europe than they've been in the league. Certainly once Joe Biden's honeymoon happened and he won his first few games, and after that it became more complicated and more difficult against better teams. But in Europe, you can rely on them, really, even if there's there and there the odd moments or a poor performance for some, for the first half against Benfica, for example. But overall, they've had that kind of mentality, the spirit that Aubameyang kind of epitomizes a lot, which is, this is his competition. He's the top goal scorer in Europa League history. He's that good. On those nights, you expect him to deliver. So I expect a really good performance from Marseille on Thursday.
We mentioned Aubameyang. Last season he played for Chelsea, and we don't have any memory of him playing for Chelsea, really, because he didn't do much. Scamacca played for West Ham United as well, and his season was kind of a flop as well, which made me think Lukaku, he's at Roma right now scoring many goals, which makes me think that it's not easy to succeed in the Premier League, but the fact that you don't succeed in the Premier League doesn't make you a worse player at all. The Premier League is a very particular context right now. It's a high-speed football, a lot of high pressing, sometimes man marking as well. And maybe the Premier League football is not for everybody, but that doesn't make you a worse player. Look at Scamacca, Aubameyang, Lukaku, and Mkhitaryan at Inter Milan, players who are capable of beating English side with some other countries' teams. And I think that this is very important to say as well. The football that is being played in England right now doesn't suit anybody, but you are not a worse player for that reason.
It feels like people are catching up to that a little bit, Alvaro, in the sense that it feels like the Premier League is an environment where there isn't quite as much architecture around players. So you sign a player, does he fit, does he work, give him 6 months. If he doesn't, he's got to go back, because we've got to move on, because the Premier League moves at such a quick speed. And even if you look at Atlanta, like another player that fascinates me is De Ketelaere, who everybody had heard of him before he left Belgium, goes to Milan, doesn't quite work, goes to Atlanta, finds a system which suits him slightly better, and all of a sudden he looks like the player he should do. In England, it doesn't feel as if you're given enough of a chance to kind of reinvent yourself. And I don't know whether people outside of England brand players as failures purely because of what they do in the Premier League, but it feels like outside, it's like it's like what being Chelsea head coach used to be, isn't it? It's like you failed that, but okay, don't worry about it. You can come and manage, another big side because it doesn't really mean anything.
But I think that there is an element of when an Italian or an an Italian or an Spanish or a German side make an investment, they have to make sure that it works for them.
Yeah.
Whereas in England, and let's see what happens after this summer when the new rules fall in place, maybe we start seeing that. But in Spain, if you buy a player for 30, 40 million, you put him in the starting lineup and you make sure that it works for you. I remember Newcastle signing Bruno Guimaraes 2.5 years ago. It took him a month or two to start for Newcastle. You wouldn't see that in another league. If you pay that money for a player, that price tag, that player is your star player from the beginning.
I wonder if it's a little bit about accountability too, because it's only in Germany, like if as a board member for sport or sporting director, you are attached to a big failure, you're not going to be there for much longer. In England, it's kind of you don't really get to fill out sort of the dimensions of your recruiting department. They're kind of Svengalis and gurus who never really come and sort of talk to television or radio or appear in the press, whereas there's actual accountability, right? You kind of, right, well, you've made a decision, it's a bad one. This is going to have a political consequence, which for a lot of reasons, which is probably a new podcast, it's never really the same in England, is it?
All right, well, that one's nicely poised at 1-1. Leverkusen 2-0 up against Roma ahead of the second leg in Germany. You sort of minded, Seb, to say, well, as you try to make any kind of argument for anything other than a routine Leverkusen win, I thought, well, maybe Roma could take something from what Karabag did at Leverkusen earlier in the competition, but Karabag lost that game, so maybe not.
Yeah, and also over the weekend, obviously they played ever so well against Eintracht Frankfurt. Also, and this is a theme with Leverkusen, they relied on contributions from deep in their squad. Adam Herzog had a hat-trick of assists. Artur, who the club, I'm not quite sure of the timeline, but the club certainly rate as being a potential successor to Jeremy Frimpong, as and when he leaves the club. They really, really like him as a fullback, even though he played out of position here. It's really hard to see Roma capitalising on fatigue, or just because that squad is so deep, or anything else really. I think it's over. I'm sure the internet will be gentle with me if that proves not to be the case, but I would fancy Leverkusen.
Roma, Alvaro, just got to get the first goal and see where it takes them. I guess that's their only hope.
Yeah, they really have to, and they can attack, and they've got the quality of Dybala, Lukaku up front. They can do it, but also Roma's run lately in the Serie A hasn't been as bright as it was when Daniele De Rossi was appointed. And on top of that, I really believe that there is a sense of a mission in Bayer Leverkusen players, and Xabi Alonso as well. They really want to finish unbeaten. If you look at the way they are celebrating, the goals they are scoring in the aggregate time just to draw a game or to win it, they really want to finish unbeaten. It's a mission for them, and this makes a difference for this tie too. I think that they will definitely try to be unbeaten here.
We'll talk more of Leverkusen later. Jules, you give Roma any chance whatsoever here?
No, and I found them a bit tired already against Juventus on Sunday night in the big game in Serie A. And I just think there's no stopping this Bayer Leverkusen team, especially when you have got a 2-goal deficit already. I think if it was 0-0 after the first leg, you always have a chance. 2-0, you need to score 3 goals. You need to win 3-0 in Leverkusen to qualify. It's not happening.
All right, official. Conference League semis also going on this week. Olympiacos 4-2 up against Aston Villa after that crazy first leg at Villa Park. Jose Luis Mendilibar, Alvaro, looking to win a European trophy for the second season in a row.
I mean, who would have told Jose Luis Mendilibar when he was the manager of Eibar 5 years ago that he was gonna have the chance to lift back European trophies? It's incredible. He did it with Sevilla last season. He arrives in clubs and he brings back normality. This is the most important thing about Jose Luis Mendilibar. He doesn't ask for weird things to his players. He goes back to basics, which is a cliche, but it's true in the case of the man from Biscay. And the other day I was watching the game against Olympiacos, and some of the patterns of Eibar 2018 were reflected there. With El Cabi pressing up front with Podence in the same way that Quique Garcia and Sergi Enrich would have done back in La Liga 5 years ago. And I think that Olympiacos is oozing. They believe that they can make it. The final is in Athens as well. and they'll be up for it. But Aston Villa has a chance. I think that the fact that the away goal rule was scrapped gives them a chance. Imagine that they have to win by 3-0 this game. They only have to score 2 and then see what happens. So I believe that they've got a chance, of course, but Olympiacos in the counter-attack can be deadly as well, as we saw the other day.
Whatever happens, Evangelos Marinakis will respond in a measured way, I'm sure, Seb. You do give Villa a chance, I mean, partly because of Unai Emery, partly because of Ollie Watkins, I guess, but if you saw their limp defeat at Brighton on Sunday, you'd say, this team looks pretty cooked, and they've got significant players who've been out injured for a long time. Is it just the Emery factor that's making us think that they can overturn them?
Yeah, I think so. But if you look at the quality in the squad, that would make an argument. But then I agree with you, they look knackered. And rightly so, because it's been a long season. They've competed in European football all the way through it. They're engaged in this kind of emotionally sapping bid for 4th place. I think most of all, I was worried by how jaded Ollie Watkins looked at the weekend, because he wasn't himself. He wasn't, he was way off the standard he set for himself across the season. And also, Matt, on the list of places I'd like to go to get a result in European football, Athens not high, really. So I think Olympiacos get through.
Is it me, or Olympiacos has been the behemoth of English sides for a few years now? Because they beat Arsenal right before the lockdown started. I remember that one.
Beat Spurs in the Champions League.
Spurs in the Champions League. They also did beat Burnley in the Europa League playoffs too.
Yes, they did.
They've done a few of these.
All right, well, they're basically Nottingham Forest B, so I'm counting this as a European semi-final from my team. What do you think, Jules? Do you give Villa a chance here? Another game where first goal's key?
Yeah, I think they have a chance. I'm slightly a bit more optimistic than the boys, maybe, because I think I can't see Olympiacos being able to defend that lead, and I can't see them being as efficient as they were at Villa Park either, because let's not forget that everything went their way, literally everything. Even Douglas Luiz penalty went their way. So I think Villa have a chance, but they will have to be better than Brighton. But how much in that Brighton game were they already thinking about Olympiacos though? Because I know in the league they're still playing. They were playing before the weekend with Spurs for that 4th place. They were still 7 points clear, and I do wonder if their mind was already a little bit in Piraeus and not so much in Brighton. So I've got faith in them. I think they can do it.
I don't really think that Olympiacos are Forest B, by the way. I'm just bitter about being part of a multi-club model. It'll come to your team too soon, listener, I'm sure. And the other semi-final is Club Brugge against Fiorentina. It's 3-2 to La Viola after the first leg in that one. That's the intercontinental action. We'll get back to domestic business now. In the Bundesliga, make that 48 games unbeaten in all competitions for Bayer Leverkusen, equaling the post-war record set by Benfica across all comps. The record is 61, set by Celtic in 1917, according to Gab Marcotti. Seb, I wonder if we can't truly appreciate what they've done now that we're in the eye of the storm. If it's one of those where we'll have to let the dust settle for a year or two and then look back at it. Because you kind of get snowblind to the W's and the D's in their column, right? And all the late goals, etc. We need some time to let it sink in and then appraise it, maybe.
Yeah, it's one of those that suits an athletic long read, Matt, isn't it? Because there are so many moments, particularly after the title was clinched, where you couldn't help but be impressed. We mentioned earlier the Dortmund game when they're 1 down in 96th minute, found an equaliser. That tension in their play has never left, even though beyond the unbeaten record, they have nothing to play for. And still, they went to Eintracht. Eintracht are a good side, full of talented players. Yeah, they're pretty unpredictable, and Dino Topmüller's first season has been a bit up and down, but battered them, absolutely smashed them. And they're able to chop and change the first team. They're able to put players into specific roles and get not just a developing performance, an immediate quality 8 out of 10 performance from whoever they put in the side. And one of the reasons I think this will be a great season, particularly in retrospect, is because Alonso's done such a good job in making sure that everyone remains focused, that nobody stops to celebrate Leverkusen before it's time, before all their interest in other competitions have ended. And so you get this kind of perpetual what next, how else they're going to impress us, who's the guy that's going to turn up. So we talked about Adam Hojek at the weekend at the Waldstadion, and Nathan Teller's contribution, for instance. Stanisic is in there. Robert Andrich played as centre-back over the weekend. So every week you're talking about something different, to the point where you don't kind of take a step back and look at the entire picture and go, what body of work, right? Because they've got Bochum and Augsburg left in the Bundesliga, heavy favourites to win both of those games. I would back them to win the Europa League. They're playing Kaiserslautern in the DFB Pokal, who Kaiserslautern are kind of struggling in the Zweite Bundesliga this season. You back them to that. So we're talking potentially about an undefeated treble-winning season. There's no way of spinning that as anything other than one of the great seasons in modern footballing history. It's impossible.
And for Xabi Alonso, one of the great managerial achievements if he manages to do all that.
Yeah, of all time. And I was thinking that, you know, maybe we can fall into the temptation of using numbers to describe everything that Xabi Alonso and Bayer Leverkusen have done. And I think you hinted that a little bit, because numbers have a certain solemnity, you know, they are univocal. So you say 48 games unbeaten, Xabi Alonso, second season in elite football, whatever. But it's more than the numbers. I mean, we have to start putting adjectives to this, and we have to start explaining the story very well. From the moment that Xabi Alonso took this team, and the way he's making play, footballers like, for example, Grimaldo, that they never expected, the Spanish guy, to have this much impact in a football game. Players like Frimpong, if he was slightly more clinical, Bayer Leverkusen would have scored 10 more goals this season, because Frimpong gets many chances. And the way Granit Xhaka, for example, has been revamped into this kind of total midfielder, really. I mean, there are so many narratives in there, and for me, it's the story maybe of the last 5 years. Bayer Leverkusen, seriously, I think that I'm not exaggerating, perspective will tell, but a side that has never won the Bundesliga, being able to win 3 trophies in a season is something unprecedented.
Yeah, I also think kind of now it's really easy to look back at it and say, hey, there was always greatness in these players. I don't really agree. Like, I think obviously Florian Wirtz has been heralded as a great coming force in German football for a long time, but Wirtz was not like guaranteed to reach the same level after his injury. Alvaro's already talked about Grimaldo, who, okay, nice free signing pickup, but not a title-changing player. Same with Jonas Hoffmann, who, German international, yes, but was at Gladbach and was fairly good player, unremarkable player. Xhaka at Arsenal. And then you add in guys like Andrich, who... Andrich, when he was at Union Berlin, he was kind of a destroyer, like a guy you just put in position to just nullify stuff. He's a good player, but not the kind of Teutonic Lampard that he seems to have turned into. Everywhere you look, you see someone who has been developed or who has reached a level of potential that they were never thought to have had prior to Alonso joining the club. And even guys like Victor Boniface, so yes, top scorer in the Europa League last season, but Victor Boniface is someone who doesn't come with the assurance of being able to step into a top league, because he'd never played beyond Belgian football before. He'd been in Norway prior to that. Comes in, immediately successful, right? And that's kind of, it describes an ability of Alonso to make sure people know their roles. And something Jeremy Frimpong said, like I interviewed him and he said, when he talks to you, he's able just to clearly tell you what he wants, and people understand it, and people know what your role is within that team. And that's true everywhere, and when that's the case, you see like the absolute maximum that players are able to give in this side, and it's so impressive.
They do make plenty of passing triangles. I think the midfielders and the wingers at times, wingbacks, they seem to be together, very close to each other, but those passing triangles, rather than for defending themselves, they always end up with a pass forward. That is something that catches my attention a lot. They did it against Roma a lot. You know, those passing triangles sometimes, on other sides, tend to finish them off with a pass backwards and starting the build-up again. Bayer Leverkusen is not about that. That suffocates the opponent a lot, because you know that every 4 or 5 passes, they're going to send the pass through.
I thought exactly the same thing against Roma, because I remember watching the first 20 minutes of that game and thinking, hey, Roma came to play, they've got loads of energy. And yet, like, after about half an hour, you started noticing Leverkusen manufacturing 3-on-3, 4-on-4 out of nothing. Like, they're inbuilt to kind of have... Verticality is not a phrase I like, but it is essentially that, isn't it? They're able to transition so quickly and clinically that they're able to play against the grain of what a game is at that particular time. It's so interesting to watch.
Give us another headline or two, Seb, from the Bundesliga this weekend. You had Stuttgart beating Bayern. You were saying before we started, slightly embarrassing for Bayern, given the links between the teams. You've got the Hamburg derby, trouble at Union Berlin. Lots going on.
Well, I'll rattle through them. So yes, obviously Stuttgart were brilliant against Bayern Munich, and a little bit of a kick in the teeth for Bayern because, of course, Stuttgart are managed by Sebastian Hoeneß, who previously coached their second team, who play professional senior football, but at a much lower level. Angelo Schiller, right at the heart of that Stuttgart team. He's another former Bayern youth player who I suspect might find his way back there. Less fun are in Cologne, who look certain to be relegated now. Unfortunately, they weren't banned against Freiburg. They just don't quite have enough up front to kind of. They play pretty well, but they're just a little bit toothless, and they look like they're going down. Mainz rejuvenated under Bo Henriksen, who's done a wonderful job since coming in. They're actually unbeaten since conceding 8 in Munich about 6 weeks ago. But Henriksen's done a wonderful job in freeing a lot of players and getting them to kind of rage against the kind of spectre of relegation. So they have a hope of. They're currently in the relegation playoff spot, but they might drag Union Berlin, who were 3-0 down at home to Bochum over the weekend. Eventually came back to 2-3, lost 4-2. One of the kind of the sort of unwelcome bits of symmetry from Union's perspective would be that they're actually the last Zweite Bundesliga club to come up via the relegation game, which is the playoff between the first and second division. They might be the next to go down by that mechanism. And also Hamburg Derby. So I live in Hamburg, so I'm going to tell you about this whether you like it or not. St. Pauli could have gone up in the Volkspark, which is the kind of thing that you never live down. Had a conversation with my Haas supporting brother-in-law who said, don't care that they go up so much, it just can't happen on our pitch. We sidestepped that landmine, but St. Pauli host Osnabrück, who Michael Casson's fans might want to know he's currently orchestrating their midfield. So once of Bayern Munich, almost of Leeds United, once of Venezia. He's now playing second division German football, but Osnabrück have already been relegated from the Zweite Bundesliga, so you'd back St. Pauli to win there, and they would fully deserve their promotion. They've been excellent, and it would be the first time in history that they've played in the Bundesliga era that they've played at a higher level than HSV. So that would be a very strange Hamburg dynamic.
Wow. Away from the Bundesliga, PSV Eindhoven officially won the Eredivisie for the 25th time on Sunday. They beat Sparta Rotterdam 4-2. Goal difference up to plus 88. Played 32. Scored 107. Conceded 19. First major trophy of Peter Bosch's career. All right, we're taking
Peter Bosch.
You're pleased for him?
I just think some people are so quick to kind of to dismiss him as a bit of a zealot towards attacking football. That you kind of, and they've played brilliantly. They've been so much fun to watch. I know that I know what Peter Bosch's flaws are as a coach, and we've all seen those. But you know, his football is a spectacle, and goodness, a lot of those players under him have played well this season, so they deserve it.
Good on them. All right, we'll take a little break, then we'll come back and do Ligue 1 et La Liga. Only 7 games in Ligue 1 this weekend because they know how to look after their teams in European action. Will Still, follower of Julien Laurent on Instagram.
That's right, my friend.
He's left Reims with immediate effect. Belgian-born English manager is only 31. They'd only won 2 of their last 14 games, but there will still be plenty of suitors for Will Still. Sunderland in particular will still be interested in Will Still. Where do you think he's going to go, Jules?
I can. He might will still be going to Sunderland, my friend. It's a really interesting one because, and we've seen it maybe a little bit with Brighton and De Zerbi, when your manager start being linked with a lot of other jobs, where even as a player, maybe you're wondering if he really wants still to be there with you as your boss in a way. And Will Still, first half of the season, really good. There was a point where we thought they could even get maybe top 6, top 7 and qualify for Europe, which for Reims would be amazing. And then he started talking, I don't want to blame the Athletic, but mostly to the Athletic, in an interview where he was very honest and I think very, very nice and kind to say that he would like to come back to England, maybe coach in the Champions League, maybe in the Premier League at some point. That was the dream, the objective, etc., which a lot of managers say. I don't think we can blame him for that. It's just that since that, the form hasn't been great. They had a shocking result last weekend, not this weekend, the one before, where he was really, really disappointed. I've rarely seen him that angry. And then I think it was probably the right thing to do. He can now focus on finding a club in England for next season, and the club and Reims have moved on, and we'll find him a replacement. It was great while he lasted for him, because I think at 31 he showed already what a great potential he has. And I really think that sky is the limit because he's got that much talent.
Jules, you're the busiest man in showbiz, so you've got to get to your next commitment. Anything else we should know about in Ligue 1 before we let you go?
Yeah, we saw a big win for Monaco. That secured them Champions League football for next season, which is big. It's big for Adi Hutter, by the way, who at some point was a little bit under pressure. And I know he's one of Alvaro's favorite players, so we have to mention Wissam Ben Yedder, who has 33. He can't run anymore. He's not. I mean, he never really ran that much, but he still cannot run anymore, and he's still capable of bossing games like he did on Saturday with Minamino up front. A really, really good win for them. Fantastic, and we'll have a great fight for third and fourth place between Brest, who is James Richardson's favorite club as well, and Lille. Lille have a game in hand, and as you know as well, there was no game on Sunday in France because it was May the 5th, which is the sad anniversary of the Foriani tragedy back in 1992, where 18 Bastia fans lost their lives before the French Cup semi-final against Marseille, when one of the stands that they built temporarily to extend the ground collapsed before the game, also injuring over 2,000 fans. So it was a really sad moment, and since that day we never ever play on May the 5th, regardless of what day of the week it is. So yesterday was one for tribute, and we'll have a very nice Lyon against Lille tonight on Monday night as we record this to finish the weekend in Ligue 1.
Nice. Jules, grateful for your contributions as ever. Try and enjoy the game midweek.
Thank you, boys. I'll be thinking of you.
Let's get to La Liga then, Alvaro. Really only one story in town this weekend. Obviously, Real Madrid winning the league. The game that sealed the title for them didn't involve them, though. Girona qualifying for the Champions League with a 4-2 win against Barcelona, summing up a magnificent season for them. Some brilliant goals in this game as well.
Well, the goal from Porto is one of my favorites, really.
Van Basten-esque.
Totally. It was beautiful, really. But Porto must be, 170, which is 5.7, something like that. He's not a very tall guy. Van Basten was a colossus. But yeah, the goals were beautiful. And Girona this season has inflicted Barcelona an 8-4 aggregate. And these two sides have never been regional opponents. If anybody, Espanyol has been Barcelona's big opponent locally. But you know, Girona is possibly going to finish the league ahead of Barcelona, which will be, number one, something marvelous for Girona, and number two, something probably catastrophic for Barcelona's finances, because they will miss out on the Super Cup if they don't finish in the top two. And the Super Cup gives you some money that Barcelona could do with, considering that they've got a big debt. But I think that Girona has been the story of the season in La Liga. This morning I heard I think it was Quique Cárcel, the sporting director, talking, and he was saying that he's very confident for the next season, but the season of Girona is very remarkable in contrast with Barcelona's season. Xavi is going to stay after saying that he was going to leave, but who knows if he's going to stay, if Barcelona is so changeable and Barcelona's board changes their mind from one week to another. And Barcelona has conceded 4 goals against Paris, 4 goals twice against Girona. They have conceded 4 against Athletic Club Bilbao in the Cup, 5 against Villarreal. They are a side that last season they made from their clean sheets a fortitude, and they won La Liga like this. But last season I said many times that I thought that a small amount of goals conceded by Barcelona wasn't so much about how good defensively they were as a group, but about heroic performances from Araujo and about a very bad XG from their opponents in front of Barcelona's goal, Ter Stegen. And I think that this season we're seeing that. Barcelona last season, by defending so well or having so many good defensive numbers, they weren't laying the foundations to have a good defense this season. They weren't laying the foundations for that. And you can see it this season. They've been drained by conceding so many.
Anything else we should know about in La Liga?
Only one thing. This is not exactly or strictly about La Liga, but I think we have to mention César Luis Menotti. He passed away, the manager of Argentina in 1978, when Argentina won the World Cup, their maiden World Cup. El Flaco Menotti passed away on Sunday, and he was the manager of Barcelona, a big admirer of Barcelona, and a manager so influential for some others that he created a school of thought called Menottismo, which in Argentina and in the Latin world gets contrasted with Bilardismo. Bilardo being the manager of Argentina in the 86, when Argentina won it with Maradona, Menotti being the manager of Argentina in 78. Menotti advocates for beautiful football. Bilardo advocates for being as tricky as you can, defensive or even sometimes a little bit of a cheat to win games. Menottismo and Bilardismo has been what has spurred on the debate about how football should be played in Latin countries for easily 40 years now. So rest in peace, but Menotti was a proper legend of football.
The yin and yang of the Latin football world. What a lovely way to finish this edition of the Totally Football Show. Many thanks to Alvaro and to Seb for being here live and in living colour. Thanks to
OK, let's get more on that game. Delighted to say we're joined by a man who remembers a very different time at Manchester United. Very good morning to Mikel Silvestre.
Back in the day, no, for sure, we don't have this type of performances. It was, it's difficult to witness. It's difficult to be a fan of Manchester United at the moment. I'm meeting a lot of them wherever I'm going, and they suffer. Yeah, it's tough because we don't recognize the values and the fighting spirit specifically. I think that's what's missing at the moment.
OK, so questions, Mikel, are being asked about Erik ten Hag's future again this morning. Can he hold on?
I think obviously the situation has to be questioned in the full season, because you can argue that yes, there is a lot of injuries, especially key position, backbone, backline. But when you see the positioning of the players yesterday against Crystal Palace, the collective positioning, after one move, one pass, you have 3-4 players out of the position, not in the picture anymore. They can't defend. This is coaching, so yes, you can question Casemiro and Evans for the first 2 goals, personal mistakes, but that can happen. But for me, the most concerning is the amount of goals and chances conceded this season. This is purely coaching. This is your philosophy. This is something that needs to be fixed, because yes, those players might not be playing at the moment all of the games all together, but the principles, do you work on them every day in training? So there is a big question mark for that, for sure.
There's so many things I want to pick up on there, Mikel. We'll come on to Casemiro in a moment, but interesting to hear what you were saying there, because Jamie Carragher saying after the game as well that this is one of the most poorly coached teams in the Premier League. So what did you make of that?
Well, it's difficult to understand from the performance last season, winning the League Cup, finishing in the Champions League spot, and the team was on the rise. I think the team improved last season. So to see what happened this season, in the contrary, it's I don't understand. And I'm like you, I'm outside. I don't know what's happening behind closed doors, but it's a concern for sure, because I believe those points have been addressed, because I know some of the staff over there, Steve McLean, from my time at United. So I'm sure they are extremely professional, extremely conscious about what's happening. But still, the result and the way they behave as a team, offensively also, it's not great. So there wasn't any positive to take from the game last night.
Yeah. But as you said, there are some mitigating circumstances. They are, of course, riddled with injury problems. I mean, you could have got a game last night, I think. Is there any excuse for what we saw?
Yeah, well, if you know you have a weakness, which is your backline, at least protect it. But that wasn't the case. We could see that the players were exposed. Casemiro losing the ball at the right back position, losing the ball on the other side on the left back position. I mean, that's not where he's supposed to be. So they should have been more cautious. I mean, you are not in a good form. You leave Coventry, score 3 goals in 45 minutes, even 4, to be accurate. You go to Crystal Palace. Go on the back foot, try to concede as less chances as possible and stay in the game. But when you concede a goal like this after 12 minutes, I mean, what are your chances? And then your attitude doesn't change. So there was Harry Maguire missing, there was Bruno Fernandes. So the leadership as well, I think, was missing last night.
Yeah, and with those absentees, Casemiro had to step into that. There's been a lot of criticism, you've mentioned it, of him. It was a tough night for him. But is that fair to judge him playing so badly out of position?
Well, you know, it's easy to say, oh, he's gone, that's it, he should be leaving. But, you know, that's only one game. I don't think you should judge any player whatsoever after one game. You can have a bad performance. I believe that in the right setup with the right players around him in the midfield area, not as a centre-back, not with Johnny Evans. No offense to Johnny, but he wasn't in the plan at the beginning of the season when you have 4 recognized centre-back. He was signed as a backup after training a few months. So, you know, that pairing is nowhere near what is required at the Premier League level. So they got punished. I think, you know, Casemiro on 3 occasions made the wrong call. He was cut out. But it's not an excuse because they should be backup. They should be a togetherness in that team. And once a player is beaten or make a mistake, looks like there is no one else to come to the rescue. So that's kind of problematic when you go in and face Arsenal at the weekend, and then you have that FA Cup final to prepare against Manchester City.
We'll mention the Arsenal game in a moment. But you mentioned Johnny Evans there. He's someone, of course, you know very well from your time at the club. How surprised do you see him back at United and to be the most senior player in that back 4?
Well, Johnny has done extremely well to stay in the game, to resign for Manchester United. Credit to him. He played some very good game, but coming back into that team, which is lacking confidence, which is lacking organization. You know, the goal where Mateta ran past him. For me, it's not really the challenge because, yeah, he should back up. But it's at the beginning of the movement. He should be much higher on the pitch with the other team, with other teammates, you know, the back line. And that pass wouldn't be allowed. So there's a few things to adjust like this. But the fact that he's a senior player, is the most experienced player on the pitch last night, it shows you the difficulties that Erik ten Hag has been facing this season to put together his strongest side. I don't think he's ever been able to do that.
Yeah, I guess the question amongst United fans is how on earth do they repair this? There has been talk of a fire sale this summer, something Erik ten Hag has refuted. But how many players do you think United need to get out? And how many can they get out with the wages they're on?
Discussion will be happening internally at the club, you know, especially with the new setup, the new people who are coming. So those calls will be extremely important if they want to give the manager the best chance. There are players that will be show the door for sure, but you know, you have to restore self-belief. Whoever comes this summer, they have to be 100% sure that they will commit to the cause and they will be 100% Erik ten Hag style, or whoever's going to come and take over next season. You know, there've been too many mistakes and too many recruitments at the last minute, and last minute you have better chance to make mistakes.
On his face, as if to say, I've got this tonight. This is going to be one of those evenings.
Let's turn our focus to South America now. Casemiro was heavily criticised, wasn't he, after Manchester United's 4-0 defeat to Crystal Palace yesterday. This was Jamie Carragher's reaction.
I think Casemiro, deadly serious, should know himself tonight as an experienced player that he should only have another 3 games left at the top level. The next 2 league games and a cup final, and then he should be thinking, I need to go to the MLS or Saudi. I'm deadly serious. So he's been an absolute great. I am nowhere near on a level of what that man has achieved. But I always remember something when I retired myself. Leave the football before the football leaves you. The football's left them.
Oh dear, scathing words there from Jamie Carragher. Casemiro is still Brazil's captain, and as you can see, for a South American perspective, I'm delighted to be able to speak to Tim Vickery live from Rio de Janeiro. Welcome along, Tim. So, as we said, Carragher pretty scathing then after that performance last night. What's being made of Casemiro's form back in Brazil?
Well, he'll certainly hope he's got more than 3 games left at the top level, because this Friday, Brazil call up their squad for the Copa America that takes place in the United States next year. Now, we don't know if he's going to be in. He missed the first 2 games under the new coach in March when Brazil came and won at Wembley and drew with Spain in Madrid. There's a new thrusting generation of Premier League-based central midfielders, Bruno Guimaraes, Douglas Luiz, João Gomes. So Casemiro, I think, is really going to be sweating on this one.
Dortmund tonight in the Champions League semi-finals. Kick-off coming up very shortly. We are slightly behind schedule, so let's do the admin here on Matchday Live. Get in touch with us on X, formerly known as Twitter, using the hashtag MatchdayLive. We want your thoughts, predictions, and let us know where you're listening from as well. We love those messages. Get in touch on X, formerly known as Twitter. But the time is now. Kylian Mbappe looking cool and calm. This is an everyday game. He plays every week in Liga. It is not. It is a chance for him to play and win in a Champions League final. Emre Can and Marquinhos, the respective captains, in the centre circle, with Daniela Osorto, the match referee. Your commentary team tonight, European football expert Chris Parrott alongside Mark Scott.
Thank you very much indeed, Rob. The stage is set then. The Parc des Princes looks resplendent. The noise has been building throughout the evening, and we are ready to rock now. Borussia Dortmund taking this 1-0 advantage into the return leg of this UEFA Champions League semi-final tie. The teams for you then will start with the hosts, Paris. Donnarumma in goal, Nuno Mendes, Lucas Beraldo, Marquinhos and Hakimi, the former Dortmund man, at the back. Beraldo in for the injured Hernandez, Fabian Ruiz, Vitinha and Zaire Emery across midfield. Ousmane Dembele, another ex-Dortmund man, on the right-hand side. Mbappe plays wide left tonight, with Gonzalo Ramos starting through the middle, with Bradley Barcola moving to the bench. As for Dortmund, they are unchanged from that narrow success in the first leg in Germany. Gregor Kobel in goal, Madsen, Schlotterbeck, Hummels and Ryerson at the back. Can and Sabitzer screening in front of the defence, with Adeyemi, Brandt and Sancho, the trio, tucked in behind the first leg goalscorer Niklas Füllkrug. So it is both traditional strips this evening. Paris in the blue with the splash of red through the middle, and Dortmund in the yellow and black. It will be Paris to get us off and underway, kicking from right to left in this first half, and we have liftoff at the Parc des Princes, and immediately the ball is lifted towards the edge of the Dortmund penalty area. Jadon Sancho tries to pick up the pieces, and instead in steps Emre Can, and it goes out for a Paris throw. Our first piece of analysis from Chris Parrott.
2 things. Edin Terzic there had a nice shake of the hand with Kylian Mbappe just before kickoff, and also the whole Borussia Dortmund team just stepped into the Paris half towards their supporters and in unison give the away fans, which is why you heard the bit of noise, the bit of booing from the Paris fans. I think they'd done that, but it felt almost like a psychological moment there for Dortmund, as if they were saying to Paris, we're here, we're a team, we are not afraid of you tonight, and it's going to be us who are going to reach Wembley.
Dortmund have it inside the Paris half at the moment, up towards Jadon Sancho, who had that terrific performance in the first leg, and immediately the boos from the home supporters. Once Dortmund are in possession, it rebounds off the back of Nuno Mendes and goes out for a throw. You've spotted something, Chris.
Well, he's off on the right as well tonight, Sancho. Of course, he played on the left in the first leg, but he is back on the right for now, and it's Adeyemi who is playing over there. So see what Edin Terzic has got up his sleeve tonight tactically. And they've won a free kick in a decent position here, Borussia Dortmund. Of course, if they score first, we don't have away goals, otherwise they really would have been in control of the tie. But if they go 1-0 up on the night, 2-0 up on aggregate, the atmosphere in the Parc des Princes, I think, would become tense, and the task certainly would become significantly bigger.
Free kick, as Chris was saying, in a fairly useful area for Borussia Dortmund, and Madsen has gone across to have a conversation with Julian Brandt. It's right of centre, close to the edge of the penalty area in terms of the line, but further back, about 35 metres from goal. Maatsen dummies to swing it in, and then Brandt dummies it as well, and then he'll go again. Eventually Maatsen does put it in, useful as well, and the header was straight at Donnarumma. It wasn't a bad ball in, Fulkrug got there but couldn't really generate any serious power on it.
I'd like to know if Mats Hummels knew the plan there, because he did make the move on the second dummy and was miles offside, but whether that was also to try and put off the Paris defence too. And bright start from Dortmund.
Hakimi coming forwards, but he's coughed up possession. It's quickly up towards Fulkrug on halfway for Dortmund. Loose pass from him, though, and cheers because it's fell in the way of Kylian Mbappe. First serious touch for him this evening, and he opts to go backwards of square to Fabian Ruiz, who goes further back to Beraldo. Now it's Marquinhos, the skipper, inside the centre circle. 0-0 on the night between Paris and Dortmund on UEFA Champions League Matchday Live, which means the German club still lead 1-0 on aggregate. Dembele, with that rangy run of his, cutting in from the right-hand side. Into the feet now, Vitinha, who has spotted the opportunity to play it out towards Hakimi on the right side. But it's a well-organised wall of yellow that are standing firm, and then the immediate sprint forwards by Sabitzer to try and initiate the press. And Paris have conceded possession, but won it back very quickly. Hakimi wide on the right, good-looking ball in, and getting there ahead of everyone else was Gonzalo Ramos, but couldn't generate any real power on it. So a sight of goal apiece, but comfortable saves from both keepers.
Real encouragement that for Paris. Their best avenue of attack 6 days ago was with Hakimi down that right-hand side, and he looked like he had the beating of Maatsen offensively, and they've immediately attacked. You might think with Mbappe on the left that the game would come down that side, but clearly, again, Luis Enrique has looked at Hakimi, who is one of the best attacking fullbacks in world football. He got good joy at the BVB Stadium. The early signs tonight there was that he'll have the same tonight. And again, I think the ball is about to go over to him now. And this is the avenue where they are looking to really hurt Dortmund.
Hakimi surging away on the right-hand side, options in the area, and he went towards the near post, patted down by Gregor Kobel and gathered safely. I don't think he was attempting to go for goal there. Certainly, having had a look at the monitor, he had a look up and was aiming towards a cluster of players in the box, but it was right at the Borussia Dortmund stopper.
Him and Mbappe, of course, are great mates off the pitch as well. They had a little 50-metre chat there as to where Hakimi wanted to play the ball, but good signs from Paris, and it's been a bright opening as we expected. Dortmund are going to try and hurt Paris when they have the ball, not just sit and try and soak up pressure. There's too many good Paris players tonight.
Sancho, Nuno Mendes takes the quick throw. It comes back to Jadon Sancho just inside the Dortmund half. Goalless with 5 minutes gone, but they've given away possession, Dortmund, just inside their own half. Picked up now by Nuno Mendes, who decides to take his time when some of the home supporters were hoping for a quicker transition upfield. It is recycled now towards Hakimi on the right flank. That's where most of the Paris play is coming from so far. Marquinhos leaping into a challenge, and the ball is spun across to the near side, where it is now played into the path of the figure of Nuno Mendes. Back with Marquinhos now, who rolls it wide to Hakimi once again. It's all going down that right flank for Paris. Dembele closed down by a cluster of yellow shirts, but has worked away from Adeyemi, and now gets the ball in. It's deflected behind for the first corner of the game. Chris Parrott.
Listen to that noise. Every tackle, every attacking moment, you can feel the enthusiasm and maybe the belief just growing from the Paris supporters, and if they score first here, they might be difficult to stop.
Dembele's corner, Marquinhos flung himself at it, couldn't quite get the contact. Hakimi back towards Ousmane Dembele. Paris have made the better start and have locked it into the area once again. Underneath it was Sabitzer, didn't get it clear very far, and Mbappe had a strike at goal, but no real meat on the contact, and again, it was comfortable for Kobel.
He's only had a handful of touches, now he's had an effort. Comfortable for Kobel, who is such a key part of this Dortmund side. First mini moment there from Mbappe. He'll hope to have lots more in the next 84 minutes plus, of course.
Wrightson finds Hummels, who's only found a Paris player with the ball forward. Just a little bit hurried in possession so far, Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah. And Hummels was magnificent 6 days ago and was able to carry that ball out of defence. Maybe that's been a moment they've looked to target. And of course, Ramos is very pacey and will cover a lot of ground in that 9 position, and might look to give Hummels less time on the ball, as he did enjoy at the BVB Stadion.
Fabian Ruiz for Paris has played a fairly loose pass straight into the path of Jadon Sancho. Sancho backwards of square, and Dortmund will start again, and the booths will tell you that it is the away side in possession, as it's hammered up towards Füllkrug, who collected it well, and then a bit of miscontrol in centre field, so it's seized upon by Emre Can, who felt that he was being straddled really by Gonzalo Ramos, who protests his innocence, but the free kick goes Dortmund's way. They've taken it quickly and we're back underway, and big cheers for the snapping at the heels of Jadon Sancho there by Nuno Mendes.
Yeah, and before that, even though Ramos gave the free kick away, Paris fans loved his game, and he is the type of player who can become a bit of a cult hero. You always feel that something's going to happen when he's on the pitch, whether it's a goal or whether it's a moment like that when he gives Paris real purpose.
Mbappe tried to get hold of it on halfway. Hummels is there to tidy up and goes all the way back to his keeper Kerbel in luminous orange this evening, and Dortmund in their very bright yellow with the black splashes as well. Not going to miss them this evening, are you, as Kerbel plays it short out from the back, and Schlotterbeck scoops it up to just shy of halfway, and away goes Ian Maatsen looking for the give and go. Applause from Chris Parrott for the 1-2, but it's broken down now, and Dembele is having a run at Julian Brandt. Still going is Dembele. He's got options left and right, and just delayed too long, which allowed the challenge to come in, and Borussia Dortmund have it back. Füllkrug then goes over, won't get anything from the referee. Vitinha won it cleanly from him. 9 minutes played, goalless. Paris, though, pushing to try and get the goal that would level the tie on aggregate. In centre field now with Lucas Beraldo, square to Marquinhos, who rolls it across to Hakimi. Certainly targeting that right-hand side, Chris Parrott.
They are, but we've now seen Maatsen counter that with a couple of forwards himself, and how fine is that balance between a successful pass and one team being on the attack, and then Maatsen or Marquinhos nipping in to win it and it be the other team. I really like the way that Daniele Ossato has started this game, and there's been a couple of moments where he might have blown up for a free kick, but he wants to let it go and add to the spectacle.
Yeah, it's been a very good tempo to the game so far. The referee deserves credit for his part in that. It was amusing, actually, when one of the Dortmund players went over looking for a free kick. He just gave him a very wide look and shook his head as if to say, no, come on, you know that that's not a foul, as Sancho brings it forwards for Dortmund. That might be a foul if Nuno Mendes hadn't made any kind of connection. Dembele has surged back at him and popped it out for a throw. That was a full-blooded but fair challenge, so Dortmund have the throw on the halfway line with the score goalless between Paris and Dortmund, with 10 minutes gone and Dortmund still leading by a 1-0.
You can hear this crowd, though. They are going to be right behind Paris tonight. They would have loved an early goal inside the opening 10 minutes, but no, the goalkeeper's had too much to do. Gregor Kobel with that one save from Kylian Mbappe, but the Paris press is in full evidence tonight, really, all over the pitch.
Ball has broken the way of Jadon Sancho, who tried to work it through Adeyemi, then putting the squeeze on. It was back to Donnarumma, who wasn't comfortable, had to use his feet, and decided that he couldn't play a pass, so just decided to pop it straight out of play for a Dortmund throw in an attacking area.
Sensible, I think. You see a lot of goalkeepers now all over Europe and the world who would have maybe tried an impossible pass then, but why not have safety first on a night like this, when a Dortmund goal would put them in such a strong position, and back yourself then to defend the Ryerson long throw, which will come your way.
Ryersen's throw towards Füllkrug in the area. Adeyemi on the hit, deflected over the top. That was nicely worked in towards the big man, who just touched it backwards where Adeyemi let fly. And it was a full-blooded contact, and it needed the touch from Beraldo, who threw himself in the way to make the interception.
I think that was going to be on target. It's brilliant play from Füllkrug. Saw his goal in the first leg, the way he leads the line.
Classic centre-forward play.
Absolutely, old-fashioned centre-forward. But just as effective in 2024 as it was back in the 90s, and that was a brilliant little chest layoff there for the hit. Here comes the corner.
Dortmund's first corner of the night into a decent area, but Marquinhos gets his head to it. Mbappe now collects by the D of the Paris penalty area, and the counter could be on here. Dortmund are a bit light at the back. Hakimi on the left-hand side for now. Fabian Ruiz in support. Here he is now. And Ruiz gets it back towards Hakimi. Left side, plenty of yellow back now for Dortmund. They managed to scramble their defence well there when it looked as though Paris might be through, but they might still be on the turn and hit Gonzalo Ramos about a metre or so wide of the left-hand post. Chris Parrott.
Well, it all started with a glorious touch from Mbappe on the edge of his own box. You thought the Dortmund were back and set. And how quickly did they get back? You mentioned it, but then that's the quality of Vitinha from deep, from the base of that midfield. Brilliant pass through the lines for Ramos, who skewed his shot wide. But this is a game right on the edge at the moment. You sense there is a major chance coming at one end or the other quite soon, certainly if it continues at this pace and tempo, which you would expect it to do.
Up towards halfway with 13 minutes on the clock, and Paris 0, Dortmund 0, 1-0 to the German side on aggregate. Marquinhos inside his own half, square ball to Beraldo, who goes for the ambitious one up towards Mbappe, couldn't quite turn away from Hummels, so Jadon Sancho for Dortmund now with the early pass that nearly made its way through on the right-hand side. That would have been handy for Sabitzer, who was chasing it down, and Sabitzer then tries to take it off Vitinha. He's offloaded to Marquinhos in the nick of time. Down to walking pace inside the Paris half. Now it's rolled out to the right once again, where Dembele has it from Hakimi, and he tried to play the return pass towards Hakimi. Just enough Dortmund bodies back in the way, though, and Brandt will spin it to the left-hand side. And Ian Maatsen, who goes further back. And Dortmund just want to try and take the sting out of things here, because it was a high-tempo start from Paris on the pitch and high energy from the home fans in the stands.
I think they'll be pretty happy with the opening 14 minutes. Brandt there, I think, cleverly just keeping the ball. Might have gone for something ambitious, but probably would have lost it. So instead, let's have a spell of possession, and eventually they found Jadon Sancho.
Sancho, 30 metres from goal, central area. Plenty of Paris players back between him and their goal. Ryerson trying to weave his way through and rid the challenge really well, and has got into the box now, but that's excellent tracking back by Fabian Ruiz to nick it off him as he approached the byline. And Mbappe now with a piece of skill to almost get clear on the left flank, but just ran out of pitch in the end, so it's a Dortmund throw.
Went beyond Hummels, didn't he? It was glorious from Mbappe. Couple of moments picking it up really deep, which of course he can do from his left wing berth. Maybe harder to do as the centre forward.
So throw for Dortmund midway inside the Paris half. They've negotiated the opening quarter of an hour unscathed. Dortmund still leading 1-0 on aggregate, goalless on the night in Paris, and the throw will be taken by Ryerson short towards Jadon Sancho. Ryerson has it back once again, exchanges passing with Sancho, who clips it against Nuno Mendes, and out for another throw to the away side. And this is what they want, just taking the sting out of things. The referee is actually telling Ryerson to hurry up, because they're too long between the restarts for his liking. It's broken the way of Julian Brandt, who's scooped it backwards of square to Schlotterbeck. Schlotterbeck now under pressure from Gonzalo Ramos, plays it wide to Maatsen, and he opts to go all the way back to Köbel, who's a good 10 metres outside of his penalty area. 16 minutes gone, 0-0 on the night, which would be good enough for Dortmund, who came here with a 1-0 aggregate lead. In the centre circle with Mbappe now for Paris. Rolls it on to Fabian Ruiz, who collects and then pirouettes around and finds Mbappe, who's rolled away from the challenge of Emre Can. Wanted a free kick for the tackle by Mats Hummels, which he doesn't get from the referee, who, as you say, Chris, is trying to let the game breathe as much as possible.
Yeah, he's been very consistent. He set a high benchmark, you would suggest, for a free kick, and players should all know that that is a brilliant move from Dortmund.
Dortmund on the move with Brandt, who's found Sancho hugging the right-hand side. Up against Nuno Mendes, who's won that battle, stood up well, kept his eye on the ball the whole time, and then just prodded it away, and then loops it up towards the Dortmund goal, but Köbel able to make the gather. He had a tricky time in the first leg, Nuno Mendes, but so far he's having the better of it tonight.
Yeah, it's the beauty of football as well. You know, they are two top players, two top young players as well, playing in some of the biggest club games of their career so far. And well, if Mendes needed any confidence, that would have done the world of good to beat him there, and he almost picked out a lovely pass for Dembele, who would have been bearing down on Gregor Kobel's goal.
0-0 on the night, 1-0 to Dortmund on aggregate. Madsen skips away from a challenge. That will be a foul, won't it? The referee does indeed blow. And I don't think there was any real debate about that. As
good set piece to win.
It was Dembele who lunged in on Madsen. And just seen a replay now, and it was, yeah, fairly hefty contact. So no disputing that was the correct decision. And as Chris was saying, a set piece in a useful area, and they've got, obviously, the figure of Füllkrug to try and hit, but they've decided to opt to go short instead. So Hummels has got it just outside the centre circle in the Paris half, knocks it square to Ryerson, who goes down the line to Jadon Sancho. Two Paris players with him. He's got away though from Nuno Mendes this time, and he's into the area. Jadon Sancho tried to clip the cross in, and it goes out of play for a throw. First time tonight that he's had the better of the fullback.
Brilliant. You know, Sancho's not the quickest winger, but his feet and that trick there to get beyond Mendes was as glorious from Sancho, who, you know, we heard from his teammate before kickoff, talking about how his confidence is growing all the time.
Füllkrug has got it and then knocked it back, and Ryerson has smashed it into the side netting. Well, again, the target man doing his job well. A long throw into the area, managed to control it and lay it off, and there was Ryerson to have a shy goal. Donnarumma would have had it covered, I think, but that was promising from Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah, second long throw, which has caused issues. Füllkrug did magnificently there to win first contact, hold off his marker, and then pick out a teammate. He hasn't had many touches tonight. He didn't have too many in the first leg, but he has still scored the goal in this tie, which is going to settle it with 70 minutes now of the second leg to go.
That's twice tonight that Füllkrug's won the ball and produced a knockdown for a teammate. Did it for Adeyemi earlier, and now for Ryerson as well. It's a big weapon in the Dortmund armoury. 20 minutes gone, still 1-0 on aggregate to Borussia Dortmund. 0-0 on the night as Dembele's cross just skids across the face of the Dortmund goal. Not sure if it got a deflection on it, as Madsen tried to get a touch. It didn't. It was just fizzed in by Dembele. It was into a really awkward area for Gregor Kobel, who couldn't really come to try and claim it.
Seeing that replay again, it wasn't too far away from Ryerson. Donnarumma probably would have got that massive left hand to it. The sun is beginning to set though in Paris, and Dortmund will definitely be the more content. They've just nullified Paris in the last 5 or 10 minutes and are causing a threat themselves when they break.
Vitinha in centre field, square pass to Zaire Emery. Vitinha stepping in once again and scoops it across to the right-hand side, where Hakimi has overhit the pass. It's beyond Dembele and out for a throw.
Really important, you heard there that there was disappointment from the pass from Hakimi, but now that frustration has found its way into support from the home fans, and that is going to be important this evening. You know, they need to score a goal. They don't necessarily need one early. They have to keep that belief, and they can push Paris forward. We heard from Luis Enrique before the game saying as much.
0-0 with 21 minutes played at the Parc des Princes. Dortmund almost negotiating the first half of the first half without any cause for concern. Nuno Mendes closed down by Sancho, so goes backwards of square to Beraldo. No Dortmund players pressing inside the Paris half, so they've been able to knock it wide to Hakimi. Back to Ousmane Dembele. Zaire Emery now. This is all in a fairly harmless area that Paris are pushing the ball around in. It might not be harmless now because Mbappe's got it on the left wing. Well, we were speaking before the game, Chris, weren't we, about how he can do more damage from out wide rather than through the centre. Midway through the first half, hasn't really done much from out wide so far.
And Dembele won't be able to do anything with the ball looped over the top that he galloped onto because it's gone behind for a goal kick.
Yeah, they've attacked a lot more down that right-hand side with Hakimi and Dembele. But of course it takes a moment. We can see Didier Deschamps is here and Yuri Djorkaeff as well. Busy few months coming up for the French national team with the UEFA European Championships coming up, and how those players who are in the Champions League would love to go off to that tournament off the back of a victory at Wembley.
What a couple of players they were, by the way.
Yeah.
Here is Marquinhos, and collected just outside the penalty area. Luis Enrique just, I wouldn't say looking concerned, but a slight hint of anxiety on his face at the moment, because while Paris have been positive, they haven't really caused Gregor Kobel and co too much alarm.
And Dortmund have been a threat themselves. They have attacked with purpose when they've won it. They're not looking to have a massive spell of possession sometimes before attacking, which I think is important. They're keeping Paris guessing in that sense. Sometimes they've been quite direct. Sometimes they have just nullified Paris and kept the ball for longer periods.
Midway through the first half, 0-0 on the night, 1-0 Dortmund on aggregate. Dembele to Hakimi on the right flank. Quick exchange of passes. Out sticks a boot from Adeyemi, so it's going to be a throw to Paris with the Parc des Princes bouncing at the moment, flags waving everywhere. You look, they're doing their best to transmit some energy to the players on the pitch. Paris chasing a place in final of the UEFA Champions League for just the second time, and as Chris was saying earlier, looking to toast a semi-final success in front of supporters for the very first time. Big switch out wide to Hakimi, who's seen a heck of a lot of the ball in this opening 24 minutes, but they've now recycled and gone from right to left, and it's collected by Nuno Mendes. Sancho tried to intercept, the ball was whipped in, Hummel's in the right spot to get it up towards halfway.
It's interesting, just as they were coming out for their warm-up, Paris, Kylian Mbappe was involved in a long conversation with Fabian Ruiz, who of course is playing on the left of the three-man midfield, so it is his passes which are down this near side, and he's picked out Mbappe here, but they were not with the coach, having a long tactical chat really about where Mbappe wants the ball and when, and it hasn't quite happened yet, but there was a moment there where it might have done. Eventually Mbappe dribbled the ball out of play and it'll be a goal kick.
Don't forget we've got full commentary tomorrow of the other semi-final, and that's beautifully set up just like this one, 2-2 between Real Madrid and Bayern München. Of course, it could be a repeat of the 2013 final at Wembley between Bayern and Dortmund. Dortmund on course for the showpiece at the moment. Still a long way to go, though, as Sancho collects outside the Paris penalty area. Good bit of pace to get beyond the grasp of Nuno Mendes, but his cutback couldn't find anyone in yellow, so Brandt will knock it backwards to Schlotterbeck in the centre circle. On to Maatsen, who has Dembele for company, so goes infield to Emre Can. And Can now holds off Gonzalo Ramos and picks out Adeyemi. Dortmund enjoying a bit of possession in the Paris half, which hasn't happened too often so far. No sooner do I say that than they give it away fairly cheaply, and Vitinha has it for Paris. In towards Fabian Ruiz. No forward pass was on for him. Just a bit of frustration from the home fans that he has to go backwards and find Marquinhos instead. Now Dembele, right flank, pokes it forwards, aiming for the run of Hakimi, cut out though by Maatsen, and it will be a Paris throw.
Maatsen is going to have another very busy night. He did and dealt with that really well. Of course, he's playing in the second tier of English football a year ago, and here he is up against Hakimi and Dembele in the Champions League semi-final second leg, and they are most certainly attacking down that right flank a lot. So far, he has held firm, ably supported by Adeyemi, actually.
Fabian Ruiz has picked it up 25 metres from goal. Vitinha now to Mbappe. Left wing as Paris look at things. Back here for Vitinha, who's going to have a go with the bending effort, but it was never bending or dipping enough, a good few metres wide of the angle of crossbar and post. And Gregor Kobel remains largely untroubled as we edge towards the half-an-hour mark.
Well, Dortmund got out to him quickly in the form of Emre Can. Of course, he cracked that one in against Barcelona from the corner, from a not too dissimilar position in the last round, but Dortmund, you can sense there's real bite about them tonight. They know they're going to have to work incredibly hard without the ball. They did so there. They've also shown just how good they can be going forward. Here they come.
Madsen over halfway has drilled it across to the near side where Jadon Sancho has picked it up. Right wing as Dortmund look at things. Brandt pokes it back in towards the centre circle where Schlotterbeck advances a few metres into the feet of Füllkrug, who lays it off and goes backwards to Hummels, and then a misstep from Ryerson. The ball just dribbles under his feet and squirts out of play for a throw to Paris, midway inside their own half. Back they go into their own penalty area, and Beraldo forwards to Marquinhos, who'll dribble up to just shy of the halfway line. Marquinhos, now Zaire Emery, and Hakimi finds Dembele tight to that right touch line, and the pass was overhit, but then slightly casual defending from Emre Can, and nearly rolled away from him for a Paris player to pick up, but it goes out for a throw in their left-back area. Well, they will be delighted with the opening half an hour or so, Borussia Dortmund, because they still maintain this 1-0 aggregate lead, and they have not really had too much to contend with.
And they've had lovely patterns of play from deep and moves which have looked like opening Paris up.
Füllkrug's won it on halfway, but couldn't quite nudge it into the direction of Karim Adeyemi, so it rolls all the way through to Donnarumma in the Paris goal. 0-0 on the night. Dortmund leading 1-0 on aggregate from the first leg as we head towards the half-an-hour mark in this second leg tie in Paris. Fans still doing their bit. They have been right at it from a few hours before kick-off through till now, as Fabian Ruiz drills it into the feet of Mbappe. He goes over. The referee says that he slipped rather than was fouled, so Hummels can poke it upfield towards the figure of Füllkrug, who's knocked it into Julian Brandt, and he now has found Madsen, who's on the move as he so often is from fullback. Finds Adeyemi on the left flank, and Hakimi, the ex-Dortmund man, in his way. The ball spins off him and out for a Dortmund throw level with the Paris penalty area.
Another lovely moment from Füllkrug in that little passage of play there. Dortmund have come with a real plan tonight. So far, it's been good enough.
And they've won the ball back high up here as well, although it just bounced away from Füllkrug. Lovely feet from Jadon Sancho to get it back from Sabitzer. Jadon Sancho into the area now, angle against him. He's got Hakimi on his shoulder. He's been forced out of the box now. Back heels down the line, aiming for Adeyemi. Marquinhos was wise to it, trots across, gets into the right position, and then clears up towards halfway. But there just have been those glimmers from Jadon Sancho that he might be able to do something special on one of those quick counters for Borussia Dortmund. Instead, though, Mbappe has it inside the Dortmund half and gets the return pass from Nuno Mendes. Left wing now, Mbappe. Ryerson tries to stop him. He's into the box now. Mbappe still going. Can he get the shot away? Tees it up instead. Zaire Emery and Dembele blazes over the top. That's the best we've seen from Paris so far. They worked it from right to left and then back across to the right-hand side where Dembele let fly and sent it over the top.
It's the first time they've been able to release Mbappe cleverly and have him one-on-one with Ryerson, and he caused the problems. Dembele, who's seen score some brilliant goals in the Champions League this season, fired over. Luis Enrique thundered back into his padded seat, but he'll be pleased that they created that opportunity, that moment there.
So 31 minutes on the clock in Paris, and it is Dortmund still leading 1-0 on aggregate as it remains goalless on the night. Hummels up towards halfway for the yellow and blacks, and down the line aiming for Ryerson, but ambitious pass. It was too close to Nuno Mendes, and now here is Vitinha into the centre circle, outnumbered and ambushed, and Brandt nearly took it off him. He's done very well though, Vitinha, to maintain possession. Rolled into the feet of Mbappe now. Kylian Mbappe cuts in field and then drills it across to the other side, where it's picked up by Ousmane Dembele. Dembele waits for the run of Zaire-Emery and gets it back now, and Dembele dangerously across, and Schlotterbeck in the right place, and perhaps Paris just starting to crank it up a notch or two. They have a corner.
Suddenly those interchanges have looked sharper, and it's released their dangerous players into really good areas.
In from Dembele, up goes Marquinhos, and Mbappe underneath it, and plays it backwards of square towards Nuno Mendes, who's given it away cheaply. Füllkrug, though, aiming to run clear, was tripped, and that will be a free kick for Dortmund inside their own half. Chris Parrott
tried to make his way through a Parisian sandwich there and was probably fouled by them both, but again, it was good defensive play from Füllkrug there to alleviate the pressure and win a free kick, because Paris, all of a sudden, in the last 5 minutes, have suddenly stepped it up, and both Dembele and Mbappe have been causing problems.
Here's Brandt for Dortmund. So far, so good for them. 0-0 on the night, 1-0 ahead on aggregate, with a touch over 10 minutes of the first half left to play in Paris. Booming ball over the top for Dortmund, which Sabitzer will chase. Donnarumma's had to come out of his area to deal with it with his feet, and now gets it back inside his area from a back pass, so he still can't pick it up. But it's Beraldo as Dortmund quickly retreat. They're not really pushing very high up, are they? Look at this very congested area on the halfway line where most of the yellow shirts are congregated.
Yeah, when it goes into those areas, then they're trying to nip the ball and break quickly, but they don't need to expend any additional energy, they clearly feel, by trying to close down Marquinhos or Beraldo that deep. And it's been a ploy which has definitely worked for the most part of this opening 34 minutes.
Marquinhos inside the centre circle for Paris. Wide to Hakimi, backwards to Dembele, just in front of the halfway line as Paris look at things, and Fabian Ruiz now collects and advances a few metres before finding the feet of Kylian Mbappe. And now a nice turn from Nuno Mendes to almost get away from Jadon Sancho. Held up by Sancho. Nuno Mendes has to dig a ball backwards almost towards the halfway line. Beraldo plays it square to Marquinhos. Now it's Dembele. Dembele nowhere easy for him to run, so he's worked it wide for Hakimi. Early ball in, not a great clearance. It nearly came to Fabian Ruiz. Jadon Sancho stepped in. They've given it away in a bad area. Vitinha 20 metres out, and now Gonzalo Ramos round the corner. Fabian Ruiz, and Mbappe didn't catch hold of it. A few metres out from goal. If he'd managed to leather that, it might have been all square on aggregate. Now here comes the Dortmund counter. Adeyemi surging forwards, Füllkrug in support. It's Adeyemi into the area, still going. Donnarumma with a massive save. Oh, Karim Adeyemi ran so far there, looked as though the ball was going to get away from him. It didn't, though. He managed to get an effort in, and Donnarumma stuck out a paw to keep it at 0-0 on the night.
Brilliant save, brilliant 60 seconds of football, and here come Paris Saint-Germain.
Oh, it's really bubbling up now as Dembele almost skipped clear. It's Madsen for Dortmund. 10 minutes left of this first half. 0-0 on the night as Dembele plays a fairly aimless ball all the way across the Dortmund penalty area, which is picked up by Fabian Ruiz. Ruiz cutting infield. Jadon Sancho for company. Back it goes to Nuno Mendes, and now it is Beraldo. Well, you can see that 56% possession for Paris so far, but until recently they weren't doing a great deal with it, Chris Parrott.
No, but you sense that these two knew before kickoff this was going to be a tight, close second leg, and I really like how they've both gone about it. That move, Julian Brandt, brilliant bit of control and then pass to release Adeyemi, and like you, I thought the chance had gone, but then he stuck out a leg, and that really could have caught Donnarumma off guard. It was a very good save. down to his left-hand side. Just before that, Paris almost had their moment, and with that slender advantage still at only 1 goal, you'd be very hard pushed at the moment to say who you thought might be heading to Wembley in less than a month's time for the final.
Yep, it is on a knife edge, still 1-0 to Dortmund on aggregate, as we await the first goal of the second leg in Paris, with round about 7 minutes of regulation time remaining in the first period. Dembele's worked the angle nicely to find Hakimi surging towards the byline. His early ball in was aimed towards Gonzalo Ramos. Schlotterbeck in the right place for Dortmund. Over goes Füllkrug. Felt he was fouled. Referee didn't agree with that. He stayed down, but play will go on because it's not a head injury. And Mbappe has collected it on the left-hand side. Mbappe, though, has given the ball away, and Dortmund have put it out so that Füllkrug can receive some attention. I wasn't quite sure what the issue was there for Nicolas Füllkrug. Certainly, our very experienced referee, Daniele Ossato, didn't see anything untoward in terms of a foul. Just seeing a replay, actually, of the earlier chance for Kylian Mbappe, I thought that he'd made pretty weak contact with the strike at goal. In fact, Hummels made what might have been a goal-saving challenge to take it off him.
It was immense, and Mats Hummels, who, of course, played in the 2013 final with Borussia Dortmund at Wembley, one of the survivors. That was a vital touch, wasn't it? And then it set in motion that counter-attack. There was a lovely moment when Adeyemi looked ruthfully at Donnarumma and shook his head as if to say, how did you save that? And they both had a nice little moment, both, I think, accepting the quality of the run and the shot, and indeed the save, as Adeyemi's just getting some lengthy instruction there. It'll be interesting now to see if Paris give this ball back. They have, and that is relatively charitable. I don't think they absolutely had to.
Well, I think that Dortmund are somewhat unhappy that the ball was given back as a throw-in down in their right-back area, and I think that they would have preferred if it had just been put out for a goal kick or given back to them in possession. And it's just added a little bit of spice.
Yeah, but the referee hadn't stopped the game, and Ryerson decided to kick that ball out of play, and therefore Paris are completely within their rights to have, I mean, they could have carried on playing, frankly. They have given the ball back, but at the expense of a throw, and I think that is about fair, actually, given where and how the game was going. And now they haven't pressed the throw in, so Dortmund will have the ball. But you know, Dortmund did make the decision themselves to put that out, and they therefore ran the risk of Paris potentially being able to go straight on the attack.
5 minutes left of the first half, 0-0 on the night, so Dortmund remain 1-0 ahead on aggregate. That's a good sweeping pass through the middle to find Sabitzer, and Füllkrug quickly on towards Jadon Sancho. Paris scrambling to get some players back. On to Ryerson now. Early ball in from him is really disappointing. He had a couple of yellow shirts in there to aim for. Couldn't pick either of them out. It's straight into the midst of Donnarumma.
I think he was trying to pick out Sabitzer, who had made that near post run, but he hit it with too much pace, and he was never going to keep it up. I love how quickly Dortmund have attacked tonight, though. It's one or two pinpoint long passes, and all of a sudden they're at the Paris defence.
Mbappe, left wing, 3 Dortmund players near to him. Jinks and weaves and finds his way into the area. A couple of step-overs, gets to the byline, gets the cross in, but it's well judged by Kobel, who shows safe hands to just draw it into his midriff.
Jadon Sancho there was completely done by Kylian Mbappe's little trick there, comfortable for Kobel. Luis Enrique applauds his star man, but 40 minutes into this second leg, and it's most certainly Dortmund the happier, and now they have a real opportunity.
Adeyemi looking for Julian Brandt, who's got away from the challenge of Zaire Emery. Marquinhos has done really well, though, to just rob him of the ball, and they have it back with Donnarumma inside his penalty area. Ball at his feet, rolled forwards to Marquinhos, who's telling his teammates to push further up the field. 4 minutes of normal time left in the first half. 0-0 on the night, 1-0 Dortmund still on aggregate. They are edging towards a return to Wembley, where they played their last UEFA Champions League final back in 2013. Mbappe offloads to Fabian Ruiz, left side of the pitch for Paris. And now Nuno Mendes midway inside the Dortmund half. Finds Vitinha, who had to go from distance. Well struck, but too close to Gregor Kobel, who was able to just take a couple of steps across to his left-hand side and get his body fully behind it.
Why not? You know how well he can hit them. That one moved. Kobel kind of had to pat it down. They do have threats from all over. It's not just Mbappe and Dembele, and it's a good strike as Paris with what, 3 minutes. I can't imagine there'll be too much added on time. There've been very few stoppages.
Just that one for Fulkrug really springs to mind. So yeah, I don't think we'll see a chunky amount of stoppage time added on after we have the final 3 minutes of the regulation in the first half. Zaire-Emery tried to just barge his way through Schlotterbeck, but no dice for him there. And Fulkrug had a quick look up, and there was no players really in support for him, so had to go wide to Julian Brandt, who's aimed to slip it down the line for Adeyemi, and the ball has just gone out of play for a throw-in, as Adeyemi thought he might be in business on that flank.
It's clever again. Players looking up, realising there's no point in trying the really Hollywood pass at the moment from Dortmund's perspective. They have the tie where they want. They're the team in the lead, and they've just been patient. I think they've played some really nice stuff. Fulkrug's dropped off beautifully to be that link-up man. It's the Dortmund fans in that corner of the goal they're attacking, all on their feet, waving their yellow and black flags and scarves, and if they reach half-time, that'll be the first real staging post, and they might do better than that, of course, before the break. They're on the attack.
Madson's done very well up against Zaire-Emery and Hakimi to force the throw-in for Dortmund on the left, which is almost on top of the corner flag. Held in towards Fulkrug, who won the flick on, but there was nobody to attack it once he'd got contact on the ball. Jadon Sancho stuck a boot in, so Nuno Mendes goes across to the left side of the penalty area to pick it up for Paris. Now it's Vitinha, 90 seconds of normal time left in the first half. There's been a few semi-sights of goal, but we still await the first goal of the second leg, as Hakimi has a run at Schlotterbeck, who's done that quite a few times, just stayed on his feet, stood firm and got in the way. Wasn't quite able to keep the ball in, though, so Paris have got themselves a throw inside the Dortmund half, as we now go into the final minute of normal time in this first half. And I think so far Dortmund will be very happy with how things have gone.
Just for now, it's not the whole stadium bouncing. There's still one end of the Paris supporters, but they have managed to quell a bit of that noise.
Fabian Ruiz for Paris. Savitz across to close him down, and he's just saying to his teammates there was no obvious forward ball on, that's why I had to go square. But they've played a forward pass now to Hakimi. Again, it's that combo between him and Dembele on the right-hand side. Hakimi to the byline, low ball in, straight into Schlotterbeck. Has to be doing better from there, although it's now given away. And Vitinha to have another go, no, finds Mbappe twisting and turning and looking for the pass, which he finds to Fabian Ruiz. Could have gone anywhere off Schlotterbeck. Goes behind for a corner, I think. But it was good vision from Kylian Mbappe to eventually find the right pass. Nobody was picking up Fabian Ruiz on the edge of the area, and his strike towards goal off the knee and behind for the corner that Dembele will take as we go into first half stoppage time. Up goes Marquinhos with the header. Kobel comes to punch, and the whistle goes for a foul in the area, and that might take us through to half-time, because we're only going to have one additional minute.
Great punch from Kobel. He didn't know the whistle was going to go. And had he not won contact there, Mbappe and Zaire-Emery were both interested. Lovely feat from Mbappe, wasn't it, to control that pass before then setting it back for Fabian Ruiz. But Gregor Kobel hasn't had too much to do, and 15 seconds. the first time that has happened since Barcelona in 2011, 2012. The woodwork has not been kind to Paris in this tie or this campaign, but you sense that really should have been 1-0.
Here is Hakimi now for Paris. Infield to Dembele. Back it goes to Marquinhos once again. Looks it backwards of square to Beraldo. Inside the centre circle now, and Fabian Ruiz sends it onto the left flank where Nuno Mendes collects. Nuno Mendes nearly managed to get the return pass from Kylian Mbappe. Just lost out in the end, and then Mbappe is frustrated because he's just clipped his man, so it's a free kick for Dortmund. Important now that Borussia Dortmund try and do what they did in the first half, Chris, and take the sting out of it, because that near miss for Paris has got the crowd going and has pushed the tempo up for Luis Enrique's side.
It's been a brilliant beginning, in fairness to Paris Saint-Germain. Emery, who is, of course, only a teenager, he has to kind of put that miss behind him as well.
Adeyemi had a big chance in the first half, running at Marquinhos, but getting no change out of him. His pass back, though, towards Donnarumma has gone out of play for a corner kick. He was unable to keep it in.
Taken care of by the
byline as well. So corner for Dortmund. And they'll take their time over this, because, as I say, it might help to just try and break things up.
And for all of the world-class attacking talent on show tonight, it's a set piece and it's a centre-half who may just have scored the vital goal. He's all alone. The ball into the danger area. Donnarumma doesn't come. And from 5 metres out, Mats Hummels is completely free. Marquinhos couldn't get there. Neither could Beraldo, who was initially marking him, and Mats Hummels, that was a bit of a gift. It's a fine finish, and what a huge goal that is. Dortmund 2 clear on aggregate, and they could almost see that Wembley arch.
Well, this is a real test for Paris now. They need 2 unanswered goals in the space of 40 minutes. They're looking for one of them right now, but they've given away possession, and now Dortmund might have some more room to work with on the counter. It's Jadon Sancho who's going to have a run at his man. Was he blocked off there? Referee says no. He felt that he was body checked. Referee thought that he was looking for it. So it's now on halfway with Fabian Ruiz. What do they do now here?
Well, the danger there was that they really tried to push forward, and Dortmund then might pick them up and pick them off on the counter-attack. But here is Dembele.
Dembele running at the Dortmund backline. I wonder if Luis Enrique is now looking across at his bench and thinking about bolstering the attacking options, because they need goals, they need them soon.
Yeah, I mean, in the quarter-final second leg, they went into it 1 goal down. They then conceded first, and then were magnificent from that point on, and they're going to have to muster that same type of performance and keep that belief now. From Dortmund's perspective, that this is exactly how they wanted the game to go, and now they will believe that if Paris flood forward, that will give them opportunities, more opportunities going the other way.
Paris 0, Dortmund 1 on the night, 2-0 to the German club on aggregate, with 53 minutes played in Paris, and good hassling from Ryerson to close down his man. He wanted the throw to go. Having seen that effort hit the post earlier on, and then not long after, Hummels stick the chance away. They had those opportunities, numerous opportunities in the first leg, and Füllkrug has now won possession on halfway. Niklas Füllkrug running forwards in towards Julian Brandt. He's got the run of Adeyemi on his left-hand side. It's popped across now to Karim Adeyemi. Paris have got plenty of blue shirts back there now. Emre Can takes on his man, Ramos, and plays it infield to Brandt. There's room on the far side now. Ryerson sent it on. Jadon Sancho waits for Ryerson to make the return run. Can he get the cross in? He can't because Mbappe's there, but he's conceded the corner.
Great tracking back from Mbappe, but they've handled this game so well so far, Dortmund. When it hasn't been on, they've just taken a step back, kept the ball, and then go again. There's been patient play, and then when there has been that opportunity, they've really clicked through the gears. I think they've managed it brilliantly so far, and they have another corner. We know what happened from their last set piece, albeit from the near side, the left.
So it will be Julian Brandt to take this corner with 10 minutes gone in the second half. Dortmund 2 up on aggregate. Hummels is up there again. This time there was a challenge on him, and the flag is up for offside. I think some fans in the stadium thought a penalty might have been awarded there.
Yeah, I wondered the same. If the flag hadn't have gone up, it would have been a serious decision to make. Zaire Emery and Schlotterbeck. But we're just seeing a replay of the goal. Mats Hummels won't believe that he had the freedom of the penalty area there, but he made the most of it. Loads of runners to the near post. The ball went deep, and the scenes of joy in that away end, and on Edin Terzic, the Dortmund fans' face, the Dortmund coach. What a moment it would be for him to lead his team, his club, to a Champions League final.
Well, some experience coming on from the bench now. Marco Reus, who was part of that side that lost at Wembley in 2013, is coming on. Karim Adeyemi is going to be withdrawn. So Marco Reus on to add a bit of nous in a situation that Dortmund have the whip hand in right now.
Yeah, we saw Vitinha and Gonzalo Ramos there, two very young players, kind of trying to usher Adeyemi off. And if they were in his position, I think they'd do the same. They just need to stick to the game plan and not let those moments dominate their thoughts, because this is a huge 30 minutes for Paris Saint-Germain coming up. 35 minutes, I should say.
Yeah, 35 minutes of the 90 remaining. Paris need 2 goals if they're to take us into an additional 30, because they're 2-0 down on aggregate, thanks to Mats Hummels' header, the only goal on the night in Paris.
Last Champions League goal, 2018, when Mats Hummels was with Bayern. It's been a long time since he scored for Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League. It was the season that they reached the final at Wembley. Well, 2013.
Is it written in the stars that they will play Bayern at Wembley in this year's final, 11 years on? Don't forget, full commentary on UEFA Champions League Matchday Live of the return leg between Bayern and Real Madrid. Rob Daly in the chair again for that tomorrow, as we see Karim Adeyemi in the chair in the dugout now. Be intrigued to know if it was solely tactical, or if there may have been any fitness or injury-related issues to it. Doesn't look like there's any strapping on him, as he resides with the rest of the substitutes. So, just over half an hour to play. Dortmund 1 up on the night. 2-0 they lead on aggregate. What have Paris got? Can they get themselves back into the reckoning here? They had that massive chance before Hummels scored, when Zaire Emery hit the post from close range. Echoes of what happened in the first leg there, as Hakimi collects a long looping ball towards this near side, the right-hand side, and goes down the line towards Zaire Emery, who's just levered off it by Julian Brandt. Reus now up towards Füllkrug, who made the ball stick, and Reus then couldn't get onto the return ball. Hakimi has it, sent wide by Fabian Ruiz, and Mbappe with a chance to run at the Dortmund backline, but they've got numbers back there to block him off. Now it's Vitinha, backwards of square to Nuno Mendes, and they've retreated to the centre circle region now, have Paris. Dortmund will be content with that. Hakimi now on the right flank, up against Julian Brandt, and he's got the ball into the box, but it's cut out by Emre Can, and he will offload to Brandt, who's found Marco Reus. Füllkrug wanted the ball early. It's Reus instead who holds on to it, and can be sent all the way back by Warren Zaire-Emery.
I think it was actually Sabitzer that made a run from midfield there, and had Brandt seen him, he would have been able to pick him out, and he would have been in on goal. Couldn't have been offside. He was still inside his own half. That was a brilliant piece of movement from one of the deep-lying central midfielders, but that was a serious chance of Dortmund.
Here is Marquinhos for Paris, trailing 2-0 on aggregate. Reus back to his keeper Kobel, whose first-time clearance wasn't the most convincing, and Luis Enrique quickly gathers the ball as it bounces out of play and hurls it into his skipper's midriff. Marquinhos, though, won't take it. He'll leave it for Hakimi to take instead, as we edge towards the hour mark here at the Parc des Princes.
Pierre Gasly on our screens. There's always lots of celebrities at the Parc des Princes and other sportsmen and women. Fresh from the Miami GP, he's a huge Paris Saint-Germain fan. He won't need telling that they are yet to win this competition.
I'm sure people say the same about celebrities in attendance when Chris Parrott's at a match. As the ball comes in towards the penalty spot and Gonzalo Ramos lifts it over the top of the crossbar, well, they may be fearful that it is happening again. When you think about the first leg and the opportunities that came and went, that was a presentable one for Gonzalo Ramos, and he sends it over the top of the bar.
Certainly was. Brilliant play in the build-up. Caught it well, maybe a little too well, and Luis Enrique turns and looks. And as you mentioned that word, déjà vu, they have now had two very good opportunities in this second half and haven't been able to take them. But at least they're creating them.
Fired over the top for Hakimi to chase. He's got the pace to get there. He's done really well to get onto the ball, and his cutback is blocked behind by Maatsen. And the roar will tell you that Paris have got themselves a corner. But we have played more than an hour now, and they need a minimum of 2 goals to at least take this tie into extra time. The corner taken short. Fabian Ruiz to Hakimi. Fabian Ruiz again back to Hakimi by the corner of the area. Vitinha, Hakimi. Keep knocking it around, and now the ball eventually goes in. And a good brave header by Hummels, and he's gone to ground. The hit off the post again. My, oh my, can they believe this? Twice now they've hit the frame of the goal tonight. Mbappe tries to keep it alive for Paris. Good looking ball in, they're queuing up, and Maatsen gets his head to it. Well, it does feel like a real sense of déjà vu. Dortmund leading 1-0, but Paris hitting the frame of the goal a couple of times. Here is Dembele now, whipped across towards the far post. Stretching was Sabitzer to get something on it. It dribbles away as far as Mbappe, who tries to work the angle for the cross, which he has done. Good defending by Emre Can from virtually underneath his own crossbar. They're turning up the pressure now, are Paris. Hakimi's throw in towards the feet of Zaire-Emery. They're back inside their own half now. A bit of respite perhaps for Dortmund, but once again the frame of the goal is rattled.
Yeah, 12 times this season, and this is their 12th match in the competition. This campaign is a mighty unlucky statistic for Paris Saint-Germain, who have played extremely well.
And here's a chance for Gonzalo Ramos again. Similar position to from where he hit over the bar a short time ago, but on this occasion didn't catch it at all well, and it goes behind for a goal kick, and Dortmund will use this as a chance to reset and recalibrate a bit.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as that attack was coming, that they've actually responded extremely well to going behind on the night. It was Nuno Mendes' shot. That is desperately unlucky. We're just seeing a replay on our monitor here. Left-footed, Kobel is beaten, it's across him. And nearly all of the Paris players and supporters just had their hands on their head, as if to say, how has that not gone in, as they now make a notable change.
Yeah, so Bradley Barcola, who moved to the bench, and Marco Asensio are both on for Paris. Chris Parrott.
Well, that is very attacking changes. Barcola has gone to the left, so Mbappe is down the middle. See where Asensio is going to play.
Sancho in towards Royce, angle against him, he's got it back towards Sabitzer inside the area. They've given it away to Jadon Sancho. Danger still here at the moment as Sancho wriggles his way into the box. Nice bit of footwork, but then he shows a bit too much of it to Bradley Barcola, and he's immediately surging up towards halfway until he's rugby tackled by Marcel Sabitzer, who knew that the yellow card was coming. Didn't even need to really turn around to see Daniele Assato whip out the caution.
Some serious thrust, though, from Bradley Barcola. Young man who's made a massive impact since arriving from Lyon. I'm sure personally would have been disappointed to have been left out of the 11 tonight, and he has responded there, having been put on by Luis Enrique. So Marco Asensio is going to sit just in front of the two holding midfielders now in Vitinha and Zaire Emery. It's very much a front four for Paris Saint-Germain.
Zaire Emery to Dembele, edge of the area, lovely footwork, he's gone over. It's a penalty, is he awarded it? No, he's given a free kick right on the edge of the box. Well, it will be checked to see exactly where the infringement took place, but there's no doubt that the foul has been awarded. It's just a question of clarifying where the offence took place.
Well, this is a huge moment, inside or outside the box. Wow, we've seen one replay, and even that is inconclusive. Initially, he pointed to the spot and then said, no, it's right on the edge. They will be looking at this. It's a brilliant feint from Dembele. On that angle, it looks like maybe it's outside the box, but this is a very, very close decision. I think it's a free kick. It is a free kick, Mark. You can't get much closer without it being a penalty kick.
Well, look, just to sum it up, it was clearly a trip. There's no doubt about the foul. The slide from Hummels started outside the area. Then there's the contact. It's tricky to be exactly sure, but I believe that the video assistant referee this evening, Massimiliano Irati, has checked the footage, and the initial decision stands of a free kick, as Chris said, right on the very cusp of the penalty area.
It's a brilliant spot in normal time from Daniele Assato, having initially pointed to the spot to think, oh no, actually it was just outside. How you see that in real time is immense. What it is a position here. If this is on target, it's a giant yellow wall, but if this is on target from Asensio, it's going to be hard to keep out.
So Asensio, edge of the area, slightly right of centre, big wall in front of him, and he's hit into his own player. And then Dortmund are able to clear their lines. Paris frantically appealing for a penalty, but quickly waved away by the referee. So after the big build-up, he crashed it into one of his teammates, and we're now midway through the second half with the score still Paris 0, Dortmund 1 on the night, 2-0 to Edin Terzic's side on aggregate, and they are starting to sense a place in the final at Wembley at the start of June. Dembele, has he taken the ball out of play? He has, the ex-Dortmund man. Mats Hummels picked up a yellow card, by the way, for that challenge on the edge of the area on Ousmane Dembele. Sub 4, Borussia Dortmund. Niklas Süle is coming on, and 5 at the back seems to be the instruction. Yep. He was showing the 5 fingers of his hand, and Jadon Sancho is somewhat surprisingly the man to make way. You can understand the decision to move to 5 at the back with this lead to protect, but a man who's been in such blistering form as Jadon Sancho being sacrificed is a bit of a puzzler. It means that both of the wide men that started the game are now off. Jadon Sancho and Adeyemi both substituted. Royce on for Adeyemi, and now Süle has replaced Jadon Sancho. Chris Parrott.
Well, looking for solidity. Final quarter of tonight, potentially. And Dortmund know that if they can keep a clean sheet or restrict it to just one Paris goal, they'll be in the final, which I think is why Niklas Süle has come on. Now, they played 3 at the back here in the group stage.
And you said that he admitted that he's a bit of a mistake.
Yeah, well, Edin Terzic said, look, we learned from that, but maybe he learned from it and has perfected it on the training ground as well. It will have been a system that they will have have used and worked on in the build-up to this game. And Edin Terzic would have had a plan for what he would do if they were ahead in the tie, going into the absolute killer moments of it.
Marquinhos goes back to his keeper, Donnarumma, who has knocked it short to Beraldo. Brought forwards further now by Nuno Mendes. And still inside the Paris half at the moment. Now Zaire Emery, who skips away from the challenge of Zabitzer. Sends it wide to Vitinha. Here's Barcola up against two Dortmund defenders. Opts to go infield to Vitinha. In the final third this for Paris, but plenty of Dortmund bodies back there, so they've opted to go from left to right. Marquinhos carries a couple of metres before letting it drift into the path of Dembele. He's sent it further forwards, and Dembele now has a run at his man and gets away from Royce, gets the ball in, and good defending by Maatsen, flung his body in the way to deflect it behind for a corner kick, which Dembele has taken very, very quickly. Gets the return pass from Hakimi, crossing position for Dembele, goes to the edge of the area, Vitinha, lovely dummy, lays it off for the run of Nuno Mendes. Wide it goes for Barcola. Can he get the ball in? No, goes back to Nuno Mendes. The cross is deflected by Hummels, who's been flattened by it. Barcola up against Ryerson across on the right-hand side, and Hummels has stayed down as Ryerson tries to get some more out of those travelling Dortmund fans. Hummels was flattened by the block he made, and Paris in a hurry to check he's all right, but also get him back on his feet.
Yeah, caught him flush on the face from no more than a metre away. I think also, just back to that change, Edin Terzic would have felt that he needed to do something since the goal. Paris have had 3 or 4 very presentable chances, and I think it was a proactive move from him to try and stop a bit of this momentum. Hummels is wincing as he walks back. Physios didn't come on, so he can stay on, and Paris now have 20 minutes to score 2 goals to try and force extra time.
Yep, 1-0 Dortmund on the night, 2-0 to Dortmund on aggregate as we pass the 70-minute mark at the Parc des Princes. It's picked up by Beraldo, deep in Paris territory at the moment. He advances a bit further towards halfway and gets a return ball back to him. Now he's over the halfway line into the feet of Vitinha and poked into the centre by Nuno Mendes. Picked up by Marquinhos, who unopposed can advance into the Dortmund half now. Carries a bit further before playing it square to Vitinha. They're sitting very deep now, Dortmund, inviting Paris onto them and backing themselves to crowd them out. Vitinha spotted a bit of a gap through the middle, though, and has just knocked it into Zaire Emery. Sent wide by Marco Asensio. Nuno Mendes to Barcola. Kept possession for a while now, but not really looking like penetrating anytime soon. It's Hakimi, 30 metres from goal, into the feet of Dembele. Dembele jinks and weaves, but can't quite engineer the cross in. Dembele again is nudged over, is he, by Marco Reus? Referee says no, get to your feet.
Good defending, experienced defending. Probably one of the reasons that Marco Reus was brought on, not for his brilliant attacking qualities, but that kind of experience there, and now he got the ball. And again, he might have wasted 30 seconds there and got Dortmund back in possession. Those little mini victories are going to be key if Dortmund get over the line here.
Marquinhos inside his own half. Dortmund edging towards a place in this season's UEFA Champions League final. Could perhaps be a repeat of the 2013 showpiece when they faced Bayern in London. Bayern 2-2 with Real Madrid going into their second leg, which you'll hear full commentary of on UEFA Champions League Matchday Live on Wednesday. Hakimi with the ball tight to the near touchline. Now it's Mbappe. Low ball in is dangerous, and there was no Paris player really attacking it, so Dortmund able to clear their lines. Collected by Marco Reus. Offloads into the path of Maatsen, who's given the ball away cheaply, and it's actually come off Zaire Emery last, so it'll be a Dortmund throw. Edin Terzic out at the edge of his technical area, just telling his players to slow it down, calm it down, take your time.
Rather, I'd almost say gingerly attacking now when they have the ball. But they might change that now, because there is a bit of space over there on that right-hand side.
Chugging forwards is Brandt, who scoops it up towards Füllkrug, and that needed the interception from Vitinha. Otherwise, Füllkrug would have had the chance to have had a shy at goal.
It's broken in centre field for Emre Can. And now it's Schlotterbeck who's been dispossessed by Dembele, and Barcola has it, running at the Dortmund backline. Alarm bells ringing here. Barcola still going. Did he do too much? He's been dispossessed, and the opportunity may have gone for Paris. Emery trying to ensure it hasn't. Nuno Mendes for Kylian Mbappe. Outside the area, goes for goal and sends it a long way over the top.
And recovered really well there. Initially, Dembele did terrifically. Sliding challenge. Looked like he'd set Barcola away, but Dortmund, as we saw in that first half, they get back behind the ball so quickly in numbers. And we get the running stats, so we'll be fascinated to see just how far Dortmund have run as a team again tonight. 1-0 in the first leg, 1-0 up in the second with 16 minutes to go, and if they can see this one through, what an achievement this would be for this group of Borussia Dortmund players who sit 5th in the Bundesliga.
Yeah,
to be in a Champions League final.
It's back from Emre Can, and then given away by Maatsen. Throw on halfway for Paris, which Hakimi quickly takes. Just over a quarter of an hour between Borussia Dortmund and the UEFA Champions League final. They have a 2-0 aggregate lead, courtesy of Mats Hummel's header here in the second half in Paris. Popped across towards Hakimi on the near side for Paris. Right flank as they look at things. Advances to the edge of the area. Goes for the 1-2. Goes over, but the referee says that that was a dive by Hakimi. He was trying to buy a penalty as a robust challenge comes in from Dembele, and a yellow card comes out for him.
And they mustn't let their frustrations get the better of them here, Paris, and therefore stop playing the way they have been since the goal, and they've been creating chances. It wasn't a penalty. Absolutely correct decision from Daniele Osato, and then it was a little wild from Dembele, which is why he's picked up a yellow card. And Dortmund won't mind seeing this at all. They look very cool and measured out there. Another Paris change, and they will hope this one might be the difference maker. It's going to be attack versus defence for the next 15 minutes.
Lee Kang-in is on. Warren Zaire-Emery departs, and as Chris was saying, there is a massive overload in terms of the offensive players that they have on the pitch now, Paris, but will that present Dortmund opportunities on the counter? That is the big question. 15 minutes to play, 2-0 to Dortmund on aggregate, and Sabitzer trying to use a bit of the extra space afforded and finding Julian Brandt inside the area. Brandt trying to get the opportunity, get the shot in, and it's deflected away for a corner.
Did so well. Initially, Füllkrug with a brilliant leap beat Marquinhos in the air to set up this opportunity, and then Brandt managed to bring the ball down, get his body beyond Beraldo, and the shot wins a corner. Again, that just eats up 20-30 seconds. It all counts for Dortmund, who have committed a lot forward for this corner.
Yep, corner which will be whipped in towards the penalty spot region. Sula was up there, Schlotterbeck as well, hooked in by Hummels! Dortmund, no, flag is up just for a minute. I thought they had a second, and it was 3-0 on aggregate. It will be checked, of course, but Mats Hummels didn't celebrate. I think he knew he was offside. Some finish it was, but yeah, he is a long, long way offside. A good 2, maybe 3 meters. Some finish, though.
Yeah, and there were some very, very nervous Paris fans.
Yeah.
Hoping there that the flag did go up. Of course, they would have checked it. And well offside, but brilliant finish from Hummels, looking for another rare goal in the Champions League. It's his header, but again, they won first contact on a ball in the box, and Paris struggled to then clear it. And you could see, they obviously sense tonight they have a big opportunity from corners, because even at 1-0 up in this position, they committed all 3 of their centre-backs forward for that set piece there, looking to kill the tie off, and if they do score again, that will be that.
Paris chasing the 2 goals that they need to get level on aggregate. 2-0 they trail with 12.5 minutes of the 90 left to play. It's going to take something pretty special to avoid a semi-final exit for Luis Enrique's side. And at the moment, they're passing it around with without a great deal of directness. You can just hear some of the frustration and anxiety from the home fans.
You can see Luis Enrique there pointing forwards. He didn't want his team having the ball there.
Well, Emre Can has lost it in centre field, and immediately Lee is on his bike, and Lee's thinking about having a go from distance. Barcola instead. That's a good ball. Dembele was waiting. Schlotterbeck in the right place. Vitinha now. If they can get one, you never know what might happen. Barcola goes for goal, blocked by Ryerson. It'll be a corner, but you can just sense that if Paris were to score, then, well, it would be some noise.
Oh, the belief would zoom around this stadium.
Corner's been taken short. Paris one down on the night. 2-0 they trail on aggregate. Good try from distance by Vitinha, but again the Dortmund blocking exceptional as they rush towards him. Hummels goes over, no foul. Referee makes that clear. Asensio picks it up on the left wing. Lovely pass here for Nuno Mendes, who slaps it goalwards, but again there's a Dortmund body in the way. 11 minutes of the 90 left to play, and Dortmund 2-0 up on aggregate, as Sabitzer this time is the one who stretches to make an interception. But while they're blocking the ball really well, when they've got it back, Dortmund are giving it away very cheaply, and so are having to continually weather a bit of a Paris storm at the moment. Lee has it now for Paris, looking to get the angle for the cross, and has whipped it over to Barcola. That's not a great defensive header, and Mbappe was in there. Ryerson, I think Dortmund perhaps just tiring a bit now, because there are some tired-looking passes in there as we edge towards the final 10.
I think it was Julian Brandt who headed that back into the penalty area, and it's led to this set piece. Can Dortmund hang on?
Barcola's corner. Oh, and Matson missed the clearance. Asensio, and Mbappe went for the back heel, and the rebound falls the way of Asensio again, and it's another Dortmund block.
Brilliant defending. It's last ditch. Can Paris get that first goal? There's still a good 15 minutes left in this second leg. They'll really believe that they can make it to Wembley if they do, but with every passing minute, Dortmund closer.
Good save. Kobel got down and got a big hand to it. Slide rule pass down the right-hand side, and Mbappe got the wrong side of his man. The angle wasn't favourable, but it was still a decent try, and it was a smart stop from Gregor Kobel. Corner which Lee will take. We're inside the final 10 minutes now. The flick header is cleared by Hummels. Lee will let it run for a throw. Well, they've ridden their luck at times, Dortmund, but the finish line is now in sight for Edin Terzic and co. A 2-goal advantage, less than 10 minutes of the 90 remaining, although on the stretch they just about clear their lines, but there's nobody up there now for Dortmund, so when they do clear it, it just rebounds into the Paris half, and Donnarumma can come out unopposed to collect. Pinged over the top for Hakimi to chase. His touch is a tad heavy though, and he's taken it out of play for a throw to Dortmund, and they will certainly take as much time as possible over restarting play.
Yeah, the heart rates will be high right now in Dortmund and around the world. Of course, they're a football club who have supporters everywhere. It was a very good save from Kobel. We're just seeing the replay. They are close, but they won't be booking their flights and accommodation just yet.
Füllkrug for Dortmund, aiming for the big crossfield pass, but he's only found Barcola in the centre circle with Asensio, who was crowded out. Royce nearly stepped in, but instead it's going to be Marquinhos for Paris. 8 minutes of the 90 remaining. Can they get a goal to give themselves some hope of avoiding an exit at the semi-final stage? Lee has been clattered by Schlotterbeck, and it's going to be a free kick for Paris, just in from the touchline.
Matson was just saying to Schlotterbeck, did you need to make that challenge there? Right under the nose of the assistant, and it's led to this set piece. And Lee's brought some real energy and purpose to Paris since he's come on. He's over it.
Lee's delivery's very good, and the flick is wide from Marquinhos, and he cannot believe it. A scream of agony from the Paris captain. Got up ever so well. It was a devilish delivery from Lee, and he got the glancing touch that he was aiming for, but just not quite enough direction on it, and it goes wide. If it had been on target, I don't think there's any saving it.
No, Kobel was rooted. Looked to his right and hoped that it went the wrong side of the post from a Paris perspective, and it did. I mean, that is another major chance. Ramos has had two. They've hit the woodwork twice. Mbappe's had that shot. We're looking at 7 or 8 clear sights of the Dortmund goal in this second leg, and they have not managed to take one of them.
24 total attempts for Paris, 7 for Borussia Dortmund. So it does feel like a familiar tale from the first leg of missed opportunities coming back to haunt Paris, but they do still have time. Not much of it. 7 minutes remaining of the 90, and they need 2 goals. And now there's been something off the ball that has occurred here, and Daniele Assato has just halted play and has got his card out. It's a yellow, which I think is in the direction of Hakimi, although I'm not entirely sure for now. Hakimi was trying to get the ball back quickly and just shoved Schlotterbeck to the ground, and that's why he has collected a yellow card, the ex-Borussia Dortmund player.
It's just a bit unnecessary, though. It's ultimately Paris who needs...
Well, it's eating into time.
Yeah, the time here to score the goals, and Hakimi rather lost his composure there. Schlotterbeck was absolutely shoved to the ground there from Hakimi. Paris just need to still believe that it's probably a good 12, 13 minutes to go. And given how many chances they are creating, that's plenty enough time, but he's just enabled there, Dortmund, to check the Paris momentum by his own actions and a yellow card. I did wonder whether we might see this change. Julian Brandt has looked exhausted. I mean, it's kind of the way he plays, but he has been excellent again tonight for 84 minutes, and some fresh legs coming on for Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah, that's right. Felix Metscher is brought on to try and help get Dortmund over the line here. 5 minutes of normal time remaining. 2 goals is their advantage. So close it is now to securing a place at the Wembley showpiece in a few weeks' time, where they would face either Bayern or Real Madrid. The 2 teams that they played in the final 2 games of their run to the final in 2013. They defeated Real Madrid in the semis and then lost to Bayern at Wembley. But the job not quite done yet. 5 minutes of the 90, and Paris still fighting and still creating, but just not finishing the chances that they've been able to engineer. Nuno Mendes to Barcola, who was the meat in a Dortmund sandwich there, and still manages to come away with the ball. He's then barged over by Ryerson. Advantage is played, though, with Paris still in possession. Nuno Mendes finds Asensio. Can they find a way through? They've had their chances, but have again been profligate in front of goal. Failed to score in the first leg at a 4 minutes plus stoppage time away from drawing a blank at home in the UEFA Champions League, which doesn't happen very often. Barcola in towards Nuno Mendes by the edge of the box. Mbappe now looking for the quick give and go. He goes back to Lee instead, dabbed on towards Hakimi, who finds Dembele. He's in the box now and then curves the ball in, and there's the free header which Kerbal fists away, not very far. Mbappe off the bar. I do not believe it. They have hit the frame of the goal again. Kylian Mbappe hit it into the ground. It bounced up and onto the crossbar and behind.
5th time in this tie that Paris Saint-Germain have been denied by the woodwork. How unlucky is that? Again, more pressure. It looks like Ryerson's night might be done just through sheer exhaustion, but he's going to have to stay on to defend this corner.
In it goes from Dembele, and swinging it from Maatsen. It's more up than out, helped further clear by Hummels. Barcola goes back to Vitinha. Vitinha crowded out. Hakimi has left the ball behind as he chopped inside of Emre Can. Lee now back to Hakimi. 3 minutes of regulation time left. Dembele gets away from Maatsen, gets it in dangerously, cleared away by Sula, and now picked up by Vitinha, whose effort is charged down by his own man. Lee gets it out to Hakimi into the area, stood it up nicely off a knee off a Dortmund player, and it nearly goes behind for a corner. In fact, it's heaved away and out for a throw on the right-hand side, which Lee takes very quickly. Hakimi now, it's getting into desperation stakes now for Paris. Dembele back to Vitinha, who's going to have a go from distance and hit the bar again. Well, this is beyond a joke. a long-range thud against the crossbar. They've hit the frame of the goal again. Meantime, Mecha comes forwards for Dortmund. A chance to settle a tie once and for all. In fact, it's sent home safely by Beraldo. Well, they must feel that their luck just isn't in this UEFA Champions League semi-final across the two legs, because the goal has had the frame of it rattled once again. It's truly incredible, Chris Parrott.
I'm almost lost for words. That one was an incredible hit. What a goal that would have been. 4 times tonight they've hit the woodwork. Twice in the first leg.
Barcola now. The belief is still there for Paris. And another long-range hit, this time Vitinha. It's deflected. Barcola collects it down by the byline. Closed down by Ryerson, in towards Mbappe. Kylian Mbappe looking to get away and getting back across. Hakimi with a go at goal, deflected. Oh, and Dembele missed the flick. And then the effort from Lee is not too far over the top. Well, they've had enough chances to win a couple of semi-finals, but instead Paris are on the verge of elimination, with Vitinha's long-range strike from, 25-30 metres out, just hitting the crossbar full on, with Kerbal nowhere near it.
It's almost the underside of the crossbar as well, and it comes out. So it's 3 times they've kind of hit the inside of the post and bar in this tie. I mean, it is pretty unbelievable. I don't think Paris have done very much wrong at all over this 180 minutes. Another year, they might have won this tie comfortably. It's not to say that Dortmund have not deserved their advantage as well, but I think you'd be hard-pressed to kind of criticise this Paris Saint-Germain performance tonight. And yet still they are in it. If they get one now.
Barcola on the charge, slips it in towards Mbappe. It's a good challenge on him by Slotterbeck, but Barcola's got it and has got the cross in, but there's too much air on it, and it will drift out for a throw in the left-back area for Dortmund. And we've got 30 seconds of the 90 minutes remaining. Achraf Hakimi picked up a yellow card earlier on. We've just seen confirmed now on our monitors, as Maatsen gets set to take this throw for Dortmund, who are tantalisingly close to a place in the UEFA Champions League final. It's poor clearance by Maatsen under pressure, and then headed behind by Mats Hummels, and it's a corner to Paris, chasing 2 goals as we go into 4 additional minutes at the end of the 90, a minimum of 4, I should just caveat that with, as Dembele gets set to take this corner. Not the best one that we've seen from them tonight. Hakimi onto the loose ball. Lee, who certainly, as Chris was saying, has made a big difference since his introduction, finds Nuno Mendes, who swings it over to Dembele. Bit of a heavy touch from him, which allows Maatsen the opportunity to step in and make the clearance. So throw for Paris. 30 seconds of the 4 minutes that were signalled have elapsed, and still they trail 2-0 on aggregate after Mats Hummels' header in the second half from a corner, and Hummels leaps into the challenge there to prevent a Paris attack. It's threaded through the centre. Mbappe, is he in? He wants a penalty. Referee says no, and is very strenuously telling the Paris players that there is nothing in it. Marquinhos is urging him to go and look at the monitor. He's got to be careful there that he doesn't pick up a caution for doing that. We're just seeing a look at it now. It's shoulder to shoulder between Schlotterbeck and Mbappe, and he does very well there, the Dortmund defender, to just do enough without committing an infringement.
Yeah, and Kobel came racing out of his goal. How good has Mats Hummels been tonight, by the way?
Excellent.
He was amazing in the first leg, midway through his 30s, but still right at the top of his game.
Dembele, and gets the cross in now, Dembele. Zula's there, Dembele back in though. Lee stretching to try and get something on it. Now it's Füllkrug. Is he just going to heave this forward? No. Finds the Mecha, who has lost possession to Barcola. It goes out for a throw. Nearly 2 minutes of the minimum of 4 that were signalled have gone, and Paris still need 2 more goals, or else Dortmund are through to the final. It's Lee in centre field, nicely touched onto Hakimi, who rolls the cross in now. Hummels is there again to win imperiously in the air. Emre Can now stabs it forwards, and it's asking a bit too much of Marco Reus, so Hakimi can collect and Paris will start again with Lee. Here's Hakimi. Tremendous belief from Paris, who have kept on going, and on another day could be level or even ahead on aggregate. Instead, it's Dortmund who are now coming forwards with, let me just check my notes, Nico Schlotterbeck, the centre half, who's rampaging down towards the corner flag on the left-hand side. Beraldo goes through the back of him. Referee says there was nothing wrong with that, so play is back underway. 90 seconds of stoppage time remaining now. Paris will need fantasy football now if they are to avoid elimination. Schlotterbeck puts the squeeze on Vitinha after their earlier coming together. Barcola on the left flank. Dortmund leading 2-0 on aggregate as Barcola almost leaves the ball behind as he tries to beat his man Mecha on the left. Back in field to Vitinha. Touching distance now for Dortmund and then some. Their flags being waved behind Donnarumma's goal by the travelling supporters. The Paris fans hands on hips at the moment. Dembele, can he give them a glimmer? Can't turn beyond Hummels, who once again blocks the route to goal. Final minute of additional time now. Surely Paris aren't going to be able to pull off this one, and it will be Borussia Dortmund in the final. Lee with the deep ball. Barcola's header back across. It's not been fully cleared. Asensio's there, but it's broken favourably for Sabitzer, who just goes with a good old-fashioned heave upfield, and it will go out of play for a throw deep inside Paris territory. And Kylian Mbappe, even now, I think, thinks that that is game over.
Edin Terzic as well gave a double clenched fist to his players. Dortmund supporter. He's about to take his club into the Champions League final, and what an effort his players have put in again tonight. They've had the quality, but my word, they've dug in when they've needed to.
Mbappe through on goal here, loses his footing. And that is the final whistle. Borussia Dortmund are through to the 2024 UEFA Champions League final. Massive underdogs in this tie. They have won 2-0 on aggregate and go over to celebrate with their fans. A fantastic achievement for Edin Terzic and co, who is being mobbed by his staff at the